Hi, welcome to episode 22 of Talk About the Passion. My name is Christian Campagna, and today's episode is called Electric Eye, and it's named after a Judas Priest song. My guest today is my friend Steve Karp. Steve is a founding member of the New York hardcore band Yuppicide. And, like a lot of friends I've made in the last decade or so, I've known Steve for a few years now, but just online. But one of the reasons I started doing this podcast, to back up a little, was listening to a podcast by this comedian by the name of Joey Diaz. And I'm not really into his stand-up, and his podcast is a little hit or miss. He can be a little obnoxious and offensive and over the top even to my ears. However, he often has this guest on there named Dean Del Rey, who's a pretty hilarious comedian. And the guy works his ass off, and he also has a great podcast called Let There Be Talk. When Joey has Dean on, they basically talk about Sabbath, AC/DC, and, lots of hard rock from, the 70s and 80s. And those are always my favorite episodes, just, two old guys talking about music, they were getting into in their formative years. And sometimes Rudy Sarzo is a guest on there, which is pretty cool because he's pretty an amazing guy, and he's got a pretty great story. And I know I like talking about music with other people, either my age or from the same background, scene, or whatever. And I like to listen to people talk about music and their creative outputs, so, maybe other people will too. And so here we are. I guess the point I'm trying to make here is, as I've gotten older and meet other people I consider, contemporaries or people cut from the same cloth, it's nice to connect with people. And, this gives me an excuse to do that and hopefully learn something myself that I can then pass on to you. So, I knew Steve would be a great guest, but, he also lives relatively far from me. So it was perfect that we ended up having such a great time together. And, it actually wasn't that. It was a little under 2 hours, but of a drive. So, and even though I traveled farther than normal for this one, it was definitely worth it. And granted, I would have been even happy with a 40-minute episode, but we managed to go 2 hours and 14 minutes. And, that sounds like a long-ass time to sit and listen to a podcast. But I know with me, my commute to work is around 45 minutes a day, and I'll, listen to a long podcast over a few days. And, over 2 hours, though, I know that's, a movie length, but, you can listen to it all in one sitting, my friend. Put your fucking Wolves in the Throne Room records away for a couple hours and check out this episode. Steve is, just as funny as a person, in person as he is online, and, he's an amazing storyteller. And he had some pretty great stories about growing up in Connecticut and, just over time how he got into more rebellious music as he got older. And then, he gives a pretty extensive history of Yuppicide. And, as I mentioned to Steve in the episode, I always thought of them as sort of in their own space in New York hardcore. And, if I was to compare them to a Boston band, it would, the most obvious one would be the Freeze, which we kind of talk about. But also, bands like Psycho and Cancerous Growth. And, I mean more aesthetically, maybe not necessarily musically. And then maybe even Siege, who, in their short time here on Earth, blew minds. But, I think that it was more of like a best-kept secret from Boston with them. And, the few times I saw them, I don't remember it being insane, like when, Jerry's Kids played or bands of that ilk. But, yeah, I don't know if that was just a humble little brag to, obnoxiously let you know that I saw Siege a few times. But, yeah. Anyway, let's get to this episode. I got a couple more things here. I'm on social media. If you search for Talk About the Passion podcast, you should be able to find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Same goes for wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can find me there and, subscribe if you like what you hear, and then you won't miss any new episodes. And you can also give me a review on iTunes. You don't have to, write anything, but hey, if you like it, give it a grade if you have a chance. And I'm also on Spotify now, so, search for Talk About the Passion podcast and, make sure you add podcast or you'll end up having to listen to that REM song. Also, if you or someone would like to be on this podcast, please send me a message at talkaboutthep@gmail.com. And we can set something up that's talk about the P, just the letter P, not P-E-E, at gmail.com. And I actually don't have a guest for my next episode, which is scheduled to happen next Tuesday, but a couple scheduling changes and that kind of thing forced me to not have an episode for next week, so that may be delayed another couple of weeks, but I'll keep you, the listener, in touch with that. Anyway, let's get to episode 22, Electric Eye, Steve Karp. Let's do it. Thanks. So yeah, I'm here with my friend Steve Karp. We're here in beautiful Connecticut. And yeah, how you doing, man?
Great to see you, man. Thanks for coming out all the way.
Yeah. So did you grow up near here?
I'm born and bred, Central Connecticut. Okay. I don't think a lot of people would have the nads to get up on a soapbox and shout that, but it's definitely your typical New England small town. I grew up in a town called Newington, and we had our affluent parts of town. We had our less affluent town parts and everything in between. But it was, as in terms of being a kid growing up in the 70s and 80s, you couldn't ask for. It was a good place. You know, there was good stuff, and there was trouble to get into if you wanted it. Definitely. There was plenty of woods to play in. I was pretty lucky. My parents and grandparents always indulged our love of books. So like some kids would be psyched about going to the amusement park. They took us to the library. Like that was the amusement park. So early on I got that. And then comic books, as many as you needed, as many as you wanted. Stuff to draw with, stuff to paint with. They indulged us in all that stuff. And as we got older, it was like, oh, you guys are into model kits? That's kind of a healthy thing to be into. So they definitely indulged all our curiosities and passions and stuff. You know, go to museums, things of that nature. So it's a great place to be a nerd.
What kind of books were you getting into that?
Early on, I gravitated towards anything that was like military history or technical. Like, so I would like skip right over Curious George and take out a book on the Battle of Britain. And I was just fascinated with cutaway drawings and tables and charts and graphs and photographs of a dude in camouflage. Maybe my parents should have put a stop to that, but it didn't end up poorly. I'm a draftsman by trade now, so I like to think they planted the seeds. So I was definitely that, and definitely comic books galore. And not superhero comics. Like I gravitated towards. Again, this is going to sound poorly, but war comics like Sergeant Rock. But I think that was my dad's directing because he liked Sergeant Rock too. So, and that spawned a love of drawing and a love of wanting to read up on history and stuff. For better or worse. But that's public schools. So sometimes if people hate my guts on Facebook because I'm so pro teacher, I'm like, wow, those people. They don't get paid enough, and they did such great service to me, and to everybody else. So, pro teacher,
nice,
pro teacher.
When did music come into your life?
I think I got a later start with being a dedicated music consumer. Like I noticed kids in like 5th and 6th grade getting into, like, so you and I are the same age, so it would have been like 78, 79, 80. Kids at that point were already getting into music. And like definitely it was like Bay City Rollers and Kiss. And definitely. And I didn't really get into music till like 7th grade. Just because the part of my brain where I should have been like, oh, I should get involved with music because it's a way to meet girls. Was taken up with Star Trek and
Right.
Star Wars and like, how can I build a more realistic tank model kit?
Yeah.
So like my brain was kind of like filled with D&D, definitely, and like painting figurines and all that. So music didn't really, and I'm the oldest, so I didn't have influence of like older kids, like, you know. And my mom, you know, to her credit, had a lot of like classic rock records that we didn't stumble into till later.
Right.
So when I finally did make a conscious effort to like get into music, it was Styx of all things.
Yeah.
It's because my buddy, I started palling around with this dude Harold.
Okay.
Excellent dude.
Yeah.
And it was like 6th, 7th grade. He was well into Styx. So I'm like, I'll get into Styx.
Yeah.
And why I say like, you know, dedicated consumers, because normally I would hear music and not really care. Like my parents always had music on, but I never was like, oh, I'm going to run out and buy that. I was like, music is on in the background.
Right.
But like he was well into Styx.
Yeah.
Because he was the youngest of like 7 kids.
Yeah.
So he was well into Styx.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to get into Styx because Harold's into Styx.
Right.
So I took my paper route money because like every good kid in the suburbs had a paper route.
Yeah.
And I went out and I tried to find every Styx cassette that I could have because I was like, well, if I'm going to get into this, I better be able to, you know their back catalog.
Yeah. Which isn't very good. Like before Grand Illusion.
There's stuff that you have to be dedicated to.
Equinox and...
Yeah, I mean, the covers were better than the stuff on it. You're like, wow, a cover of a lady with 2 faces. And you put it on and you're like, it's all ballads. And you're like, I guess I got to support it because it's my band. But Grand Illusion was good. Like, I haven't even listened to all that. Like, now I'll hear, like, a Styx song on the radio, and it'll be, like, something that's they got a bad rap because they have so much like schlocky ballady stuff, or like Come Sail Away. But then they have like Renegade. And you're like, that's a straight up hard rock banger.
Blue Collar Man.
Yeah. And then there's stuff off of that one album is something theater.
Paradise
Theater. And like that's like obviously a concept album. And like Rockin' the Paradise. You know, and now that I look back, I'm like, that's music for like theater kids. Which is good because it's like very theatrical. But like that was my band, and that made me want to listen to like FM radio. And like FM radio here in New England was like all rock, which was cool. So it was like I turn it on and it would be Deep Purple and Aerosmith and Doors and all that. So I'm like, cool. I'm in, and I got really into Skinnerd. Like, and then it was like Southern rock because my buddy Harold's older brothers were into Southern rock. You know, so it was Outlaws and Marshall Tucker and all that stuff, and like. Going away somewhere with a t-shirt shop and coming home with the iron-on of the Leonard Skinner Sour Mash whiskey. You know, I'm like 11.
I had that
too. And it peels off the first day you take it in the ocean. But so that was like started me, you know, paying attention to music as something that like, oh, I'm a kid and I should do that. And then somehow, like, I have a younger brother and he started to get really into Jimi Hendrix. And so I started to listen to Jimi Hendrix. And then one of our older relatives dumped a bunch of rock records on us. And then my mom was like, oh, I have rock records too. So we were listening to Cream. We were listening to Deep Purple and stuff. And that stuff's all cool. But as we got to be like a little bit older teenagers, like 13, we're like, this isn't super rebellious because this is mom's music. My mom's like, oh, I saw The Who. And I love The Who. And I'm like, I can't love the same music as my mom. That's not rebellious. And you know, truth be told, I worship Pete Townsend. Absolutely.
No, same.
I worship. But at that time, when you're like, I can't wear the same shirt as my mom.
Right.
How rebellious is that?
And at that time, they were kind of, you know, the
Pete had a mullet.
face dances.
There's
some
good music, but again, it's not break windows music, which is what you need at 13.
Exactly.
You know, it's not take your BMX bike off a jump music. You know, you bet. It's not music to hit your brother with a stick to. So we started listening to the radio more, and I became more aware of music that was, and I mean, there was a lot of sucky music, you know, that was going on at the time. But like I have a cousin that we grew up with as well, and he was like, like my brother, my cousin, and myself were always real tight.
Yeah.
And we were always bouncing ideas off each other. You know, one of us would find a cool comic,
Yeah.
and we would share it with the others,
Yeah,
and we would
yeah.
all do that stuff. They were in another town over, and they got MTV before us.
Yeah.
And so we started watching MTV.
Yeah.
We started seeing like stuff on there, and we're like, ooh, what's
Yeah.
this? And then my cousin Chris got into AC/DC.
Yeah.
And I was scared of AC/DC.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
at that age,
Oh,
I was
yeah.
still probably like 12, 13, and I was scared of AC/DC.
Yeah.
Because which I think they would have been flattered with, because I'm like, that guy's got tattoos.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
missing like a bunch of teeth.
Yeah, yeah.
Like those dudes would they would probably like steal shit from you.
Yeah. I was scared of that live album when I first saw that with the guitar sticking out
yeah.
of him. I was like, wow.
Well, there was the one picture too with where Angus has the devil horns
There's the
airbrushed
horns.
in.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, that's devil music, man.
Yeah,
And so I was nervous about it. But he got into AC/DC, so like that led to eventually like harder stuff,
Yeah.
like early Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
And then like I remember I had this really terrible cassette player, AM/FM cassette player that you
Yeah.
like you probably see guys that put sighting up now have it. It's
Yeah.
got one speaker,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
it's
yeah.
got the cassette part,
Yeah.
and then it's got the big dial where
Yeah.
you.
I have one of those at home. Still.
Yeah, those they're
Yeah.
you know they're gonna survive. They're like
Yeah.
the cockroaches of
Yeah, yeah.
electronics. They're gonna
Yep.
survive, and. I was fiddling around. I would listen to that, and then I would tape songs that I thought were awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Like me and my friend Harold called them jammers. We're
Yeah.
like, yo, did you tape any jammers? You're like, yeah, man,
Yeah.
I did, and it would be Loverboy.
Right.
You know, but like Turn Me
Turn me
Loose.
loose. Yeah, yeah.
Well, when you're 12,
Yeah.
you don't know any better.
Yeah.
But one night I was up listening. I'm like, I'm going to stump Harold. I'm going to find a real jammer.
Yeah.
And I heard the opening to Electric Eye
Oh, yeah.
by Judas Priest.
Yeah.
And like it was real late, and like
Yeah.
my brother and I had bunk beds, and he was asleep above me, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then I hear this voice, like Halford's voice was so different than
Yeah,
anything
right.
else that I had
Yeah.
been hearing. You know, and what I've been hearing was like roller skate music.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so I hear this, and it's not REO Speedwagon,
Right,
it's
right.
not Aerosmith,
Yeah.
and like the palm muting.
Yeah.
And I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
what is this?
Yeah.
And then we see the video for Another Thing Coming.
Yeah.
And I'm like, lasers? A guitar that's reflecting lasers?
Yeah.
The guy blows up, his pants fall down?
Right.
What is this?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we progressively like ramped it up and
Yeah.
ramped it up with our music consumption.
Yeah.
And I mean, I still like Styx
Yeah, yeah.
and stuff, but like Styx stopped doing it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I'm like, all right, Iron Maiden. Because we knew we had arrived when like our parents were like, what's this? This is
Yeah.
terrible.
Right,
you
right.
can't play this in the car.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's when we knew we're like, okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Earlier on, you know, if you played the Blues Brothers soundtrack,
Yeah.
you know, your parents are like, all right, you guys get to choose a tape.
Right,
And
yeah.
you're like, Bob Seger.
Yeah, yeah.
You
The
know,
Doobie
everybody likes Kathmandu. It's a
Yeah,
great
yeah.
song. And
Yeah.
when your parents do, you're like, oh well. But
Right.
now you hand your parents Screaming for Vengeance or a Point of Entry, and they're
Yeah.
like, they're looking at the guys on the band, and they're like, we're not going to play
Yeah.
this. We are not going to play this for a car ride from
Right.
here to go to the Boston Science Museum.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah.
You're going to have to listen to the Doobie Brothers. You're going to have
Yeah.
to be. We'll placate you with that. We'll meet you halfway.
Yeah, yeah.
You're not playing, we're not playing Iron Maiden, man.
Right.
And I love how parents like mangle band names
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we're like, we're not playing that. So that made us, we're like, cool, we got it.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
got something our parents hate.
Yeah.
We're in there. So, so at that point, yeah. And the thing that was cool about my cousin Chris was
Yeah.
his family friends had these two sons from Staten Island
Yeah.
that were like, if we were 12, they would have been like 15.
Yeah.
And they were well into like what was considered underground metal.
Okay.
And they would give my cousin all the records they didn't want.
Yeah.
And then he in turn would play them for us.
Yeah.
So it's like we were getting like Diamond Head.
Yeah, like
Before
Saxon and stuff like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
But like the new wave of British heavy metal,
Yeah, yeah.
like kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And like I think that was the first time I saw Killers.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's this? And
Yeah.
I was scared of it.
Oh, yeah.
I won't like you look at the cover of Killers.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're like, I'm scared of this.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
it's-
a little bit nervous. These other guys were like, I love this. I'm
Yeah,
going
yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
I was a little bit nervous. I was like, all right, I'll get into it eventually.
Yeah.
But I think the Iron Maiden album that sucked me in was probably Peace of Mind.
Yeah, same here.
I got it then. That's when I was like, all right, goodbye, kid.
Yeah.
Goodbye, Styx.
Yeah.
Even though I had seen, Mr. Roboto came out.
Yeah.
I went to see him, and I had my Iron Maiden shirt on.
Yeah.
That was my first concert.
Yeah.
It was Iron Maiden at the New Haven Civic Center.
Oh, nice.
And it was like my brother, I think it was just my cousin and myself, and my poor uncle took us.
Yeah.
He was miserable.
Yeah.
It was like Iron Maiden, Fastway, and Coney Hatch.
Nice. Oh,
so Fastway.
Coney Hatch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coney Hatch. But Fastway was incredible.
Yeah.
And it was like
awesome.
Say What You Will was a big hit. And I didn't know enough to know I should be worshiping Eddie Clark at that time.
Yeah, of course.
Later on I did, but
Yeah,
I didn't know. I was like, oh, I know Say What You Will. It's got the cool album cover with the car doing a huge burnout.
Yeah.
And so, at that point, it was the transition from just like hard rock. I'm like, all right, I'm into heavy metal now, man.
Yeah. And then do you think being into comics and that kind of stuff, that Iron Maiden probably appealed to you because they're,
they were the package deal, man.
Yeah.
They definitely were. Like the Derek Riggs covers. Like I knew artwork enough to know that like technically they weren't precise.
Right.
But they had everything that like a 13, 14-year-old kid needed.
Yeah.
And they were like drawable.
Yeah.
Like I could sit down and like copy Eddie or trace Eddie,
Right.
and then like a couple days later, kind of do a reasonable facsimile in study hall.
Yeah.
So definitely, it was a package deal.
Yeah.
And then God bless MTV because you're seeing like the videos too.
Flight of Icarus. Remember that video? That was probably the first video I saw by them.
I saw. Run to the Hills.
Yeah, it might have been that.
Run to the Hills.
Yeah, it was something from...
was before that.
Yeah.
And but so then we became dedicated. We would watch MTV.
Yeah.
We'd sit through 11 crappy videos. It was like motels and stuff. And then it wouldn't be heavy metal, but you'd be happy. Like, oh, live Van Halen.
Right. Yeah.
Or then AC/DC. I put the finger on you. I remember that video was in high rotation.
Yeah.
And then a live Van Halen, and we're like, that's cool. We'll take it. It's not Maiden. It's not Priest.
Yeah.
We'll take that, but definitely the artwork. I say the same thing goes for Judas Priest.
Yeah.
It became a point of like if you didn't know the band, you would buy it based on the cover. Obviously, like just like comic books. Like if I saw a comic, and later on when I worked in comics and I realized, oh yeah, that's how you sell a comic is from the cover.
Right.
Same thing with the record. I'd see a record and I'd be like, yeah, my parents are going to hate that thing. They are going to hate that.
Right.
And it's going to look cool on the back of a jean jacket, poorly drawn.
Right.
Yeah, it was clearly. Plus, they were British.
Yeah.
So there was, like, I kind of became an Anglophile at the same time.
Yeah.
And, which was cool because I was already into British stuff because I like British model kits.
Yeah.
And, like, I liked a lot of British TV shows, like Doctor Who.
Okay, yeah.
And I loved Space 1999. It was all British stuff, so it just dovetailed nicely. And I'm like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah. Did you ever get into The Prisoner after from the Maiden?
I tried to.
Yeah, it was
the Maiden song to me was better than the show. But again, that's a 14-year-old.
Right.
I didn't have the wherewithal to understand.
Yeah.
But the song obviously was great.
Yeah.
And but that's the same thing. So we search it out and we're like, Maiden wrote a song about this.
Right, I know.
This is not as good as the Iron Maiden song. But the artwork, and learning how to draw their logos was crucial. Like the Judas Priest one.
That was a tough one.
That was a tough one.
Yeah.
That was a tough one. And definitely the Derek Riggs stuff. And then finding out like there was all these singles that were not available readily in America that had all this great artwork on it. And it was always Eddie doing something pretty rad. And obviously that was paintable on a jean jacket and stuff too. So it was a package deal. Like if anybody was gonna like sell Target stuff at 14-year-old kids,
they knew.
It was perfection. It was definitely perfect for us. So that made us, it was, and then that was the gateway drug too. We started reading Cream, Hit Parader, and because obviously we wanted to have pictures of Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and Eddie Van Halen and David Lee Roth all over our room and in our locker and stuff. And that kind of is like, all right, well, what's next? What else is out there? You know, and I remember when like Rat first came out.
Oh, yeah.
And we listened to him a little bit, and then all of a sudden all the kids liked Rat, especially the girls were like, Rat sucks.
Right.
And same thing with the first Motley Crue.
Oh, yeah.
We're like, oh, yeah, this is pretty great.
Yeah, yeah.
And then everybody got in a shout at the Devil. We're like, they're no good now.
Right. Quiet Riot, too.
Yeah. Mental Health is so great.
Yeah.
And then somebody told you later on, you're like, that's a cover.
Right.
And you're like, of some band called Slade.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're like, who's Slade?
Right, yeah.
And you know,
you go backwards.
That'll come back, you know. They're like, all right, that's going to be on the test. Pay attention now. That'll come back to haunt you later.
Yeah, yeah.
But reading the metal magazines and acquiring them by any means necessary led to like some of us starting to learn to play guitar too.
Yeah. That was my next question.
So I grew up, my dad was a trained musician and he was a music teacher.
Okay.
And he had played in swing and jazz bands in the 60s.
Okay.
So that means he hated rock and roll. Hated it.
Yeah.
He would tolerate a few roots songs, you know, like a little bit of Eddie Cochran here and there, a little bit of Buddy Holly here and there, but that's about it. But whereas my mom liked rock, but he was a trained musician, so his thing was like, all right, you kids are all going to play instruments. Right. So the minute that the public school said, hey, you guys want to play instruments, he's like, you guys are playing instruments. Yeah. So we had already been playing instruments, but nothing cool like clarinet. Yeah, yeah. It's like, how cool is it? It's useless. You know, when your favorite band's Van Halen, it's freaking useless to play flute. But I mean, and then like Tull. You know, like so that was maybe a potential sell there. But so then, like again, my cousin who's going to feature in the story, but he started playing guitar because of Angus Young. Oh yeah. Like he loved Angus Young. Yeah. And to the fact where he called him Agnes Young by accident. Like we would read these articles in Hit Parade or in Cream, and like our reading was sucky anyway. And he's like, Agnes Young. Check it out. He's playing in the Schoolboy. And so obviously SGs were the guitar to have. Oh, yeah. And so he started taking lessons before us, and he got like, he saved up his paper route money. Yeah. And he bought like a really nice SG, I think off his guitar teacher, who later became our guitar teacher. Yeah. So there was the Hit Parader and Cream, and then there was also Guitar for Practicing Musician. Remember when that first came out? Game changer. Oh, yeah. Because there'd be a bunch of articles about bands you didn't care, like Dixie Dregs. Who are they? Steve Morris. I don't care about that guy. I want to read about Eddie Van Halen. I want to read about Tony Iommi. I want to read about KK Downing.
Yeah, I don't care about Pat Martino or whatever.
Yeah, it's to our detriment because obviously those people rule. Yeah. But again, you're talking to a 14-year-old. Yeah. And so, like, so my cousin's taking lessons. We're like, he got an electric guitar. Yeah. Like regular people can have rock instruments. Yeah, yeah. And that was a game changer. Yeah. So he started like taking lessons, and we would go to his house and he'd be like, check it out. Yeah. And you know, he had like a real rudimentary amp and like, you know, intro to distortion pedal. Yeah. But he'd be playing it and we'd be like, wow. So naturally, we wanted to take guitar. My brother and I, that is we. So we had the guitar magazines too that were, you know, would have the tab for like Eruption. Right. So these two yo-yos would sit down and puzzle through that because they were very, very patient. Yeah. Me, I'd be like, I don't even want to deal. I don't want to deal with that. I worshipped the guitar players, but I'm like, I'm never going to be that guy. Yeah. So that all dovetailed into us trying to find other bands to like stay ahead of the other kids. Yeah. Because it's always, you know, it's like an arms race. Oh yeah. Some kid shows up in an Iron Maiden shirt. You're like, I'll show you. Accept shirt. Yeah. He's like, I see your Accept, and I raise you a Queensryche. Right. So it's this constant arms race of like who can one up another kid with like obscure, semi-obscure bands. Yeah. So we would comb these magazines to see who was coming out, and like the Queensryche EP. That's a ripper. Yeah. So that one was like mandatory. Like if you liked Iron Maiden and you didn't have that, you're not even an Iron Maiden dude. You're a poser. Yeah. So it became this arms race to kind of find new and upcoming bands. But there was also a point. It's like Venom, right? No. We don't go that. We don't go there. Yeah. We don't. Motorhead. No. We don't. That guy's ugly. Yeah. You know, he looks. He looks like he drives our school bus.
Yeah.
He's scary.
Yeah.
We don't go there.
Yeah.
You know, it was stuff that still sounded like Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So we were finding that stuff and starting to play guitar, but we were playing other people's. It never occurred to us we could write our own music.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it took punk to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
It took punk. And even when, we were kind of taking guitar lessons, it was always like, well, we're going to learn somebody else's song.
Yeah.
We're going to learn how to play the solo from some other song, or
Right.
we're gonna figure out guitar harmonies for Run to the Hills or something.
Right.
It was never like, hey, I want to show you guys what to do. Write your own damn songs.
Yeah, yeah.
That came later and then ruined everything.
Right.
It all went pear-shaped after
Right,
that.
right.
Yeah, so it was, your typical teenage stuff of being like, but being, if you remember, like being a headbanger in like 83, 84, that was a full-time fucking job.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't just wear an Iron Maiden shirt to school.
Oh, yeah.
You had a jean
Pins.
jacket.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had pins and you had to steal the pins.
Yeah.
Like, if a kid that paid for a pin,
Right.
kid sucked.
Yeah.
Or God forbid his parents gave him a pin. It's like, you had to earn it.
Yeah, yeah.
You stole that pin, And so you had your jean jacket covered from lapel to the bottom of it in Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and Black Sabbath, because any kid that didn't have Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll, that kid was ostracized.
Yeah.
Even if he had like everything, but he didn't have Sold Our Souls. Like, Sold Our Souls was like you had to have it.
Yeah.
And you had to call it Iguana Surprise. Yeah. And you always fast forwarded it over it.
Yeah, I know.
You're like to get to whatever
changes too.
Yeah. Ozzy.
I still fast forward through that.
Yeah, I delete it from every playlist.
Exactly.
Even when I get the whole album, I'm like, gone, gone, right out of iTunes. Like I erase it, know. So you had all your headbanger accoutrements, man.
Yeah.
And the added bonus was that, like, I could draw a little bit because I'd always stuck with drawing.
Yeah.
So, like, I would draw my own heavy metal shit.
Yeah.
So I had a jean jacket, and my poor mom would like run out and buy a Levi's jean jacket.
Yeah.
And then like 2 days later, it would be covered.
Yeah.
And she's like, "What did you do to your coat? That thing, it cost a lot of money." And I'm like, "I made it awesome, and it's covered with Iron Maiden stuff, and Judas Priest, and then and all this stuff." So again, being a headbanger is a full-time job.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, if you're not rubbing it in everyone's face that you are into Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, you're doing it wrong.
There was a guy that walked around our town named, I can't remember what his name was, but he was old. He was friends with my best friend's older sister and her boyfriend, and they were like the heavy metal guys. But this guy used to walk around town, and the first time I heard, because I got into Judas Priest through Screaming for Vengeance and sort of went forward. I never heard the stuff before.
Okay.
But he showed up. We were at like a party, and he just showed up with like a boombox blasting the live record, Unleashed in the East.
Oh.
And that was the first time I heard like that stuff. And I remember like going. But that guy he had this long mullet. He was like the cool guy. Like
right.
I wish I remembered. I think his name was David something.
Of course.
But he would walk around Swampscott with just a boombox blasting.
The Pied Piper.
UFO, like all that kind of stuff,
Yeah. And our thing, at least, that somehow we had this unwritten rule that, like, when I got Screaming for Vengeance definitely was the gateway drug. Cause, like, you look at that cover.
Yeah.
It's the best cover of all time.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's the best cover for that type of music.
Oh, yeah.
We got that, but then we're like, all right, we're not composers.
Right.
We're buying their entire back catalog.
Yeah.
And damn it, we're going to like it.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, we're listeing to it. We're listening to like Rock-a-Rolla.
Yeah.
It sounds like Sabbath.
Yeah.
And it also sounds a little bit like Tall and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool.
Yeah, it's got a weird.
If we had heard that first and not heard Screaming for Vengeance, we'd have been like, get this hippie shit out of here.
Yeah.
But we're like, okay, we can stomach this because we know it's leading up to
exactly.
Breaking the Law.
Yeah.
How about, did you see the Breaking the Law video on MTV? Dude.
Yeah, I know. That was a game changer.
It was
all
just
those
incredible.
videos were
Hot Rockin', the video too. He's playing it, and the cymbals are on fire.
That's one of the best.
I remember watching that, and then like at my cousin's house, and like my aunt walked in, and she's like, "What the hell are you guys watching?" or like breaking the law when they're holding up the bank with the flying V.
Yeah.
And again, that was another thing where my parents were like, who are these idiots? Are those girls?
The Hot Rockin' video had some overtones to it too.
Yeah, and, I mean, it's like it should have been, and like our parents saw it, and they're like, "Should we?" I could see it. I could see now. I can see the.
Right.
Should we say?
Right.
No, it's going to open a bigger Pandora's box.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they don't want to be like, well, there's a reason your Uncle Randy doesn't come to a lot of picnics. You know, and they didn't want to. They didn't want to open that box.
Yeah.
Up, you know, a guy dressed head to toe in leather.
The whip.
Yeah, the riding crop, and it's not because he likes motorcycles a lot. So they didn't want to open that. But so, we were careful about buying a band's back catalog.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you know, some kid would be like, oh, yeah, you think you like Judas Priest?
Yeah.
Yeah? Well, name a song off Sad Wings of Destiny.
Yeah.
And you'd rattle them off. You'd be like, all right, you're cool. You're solid.
Yeah.
You know, because the worst thing you could do is be... This dude's a poser.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah.
You're done. You may as well just quit school, join the Foreign Legion, and never be heard from again.
Yeah.
So, you had to get the back catalog.
Yeah.
And then it's like you had to start playing guitar.
Yeah.
And you had to like be being a rocker.
Yeah.
People like you could put it on your W-2 form if you had to have one when you were 14.
I know, right?
It's like you had to and you also had to be a troublemaker.
Oh yeah.
You had to do stupid shit.
Yeah.
You had to steal and break and nothing bad like I stole a car.
Yeah.
But it's like I stole a poster from Card Gallery.
I got driven home by the police a lot. It was like there was like one cop in the town that would just like my mother would be on the porch, be like, "Yep, here he is." Like what did he do this time? He threw a bottle at a car driver.
There you go.
Something maybe not that, but something stupid.
Something along those lines of like, well, we can either nip this in the bud or we can see this turning into and it didn't. And it didn't.
Exactly.
And it's not like the music made you do it, but it made a great fucking soundtrack.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
For stealing a bunch of like stuff from a construction site and breaking it all.
Right. Yeah,
and you're not gonna do that to REO Speedwagon.
Right.
You're obviously gonna do that to Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
You know, and that's all there is to it.
And now as an adult, I think of some of the stuff I did as a kid, and I'm like, I would be so fucking pissed if someone, because we would like walk by someone's house and just rip the drain pipe off the side of the house or something.
Exactly.
Exactly. Did that to me now, I'd be like, fucking Christ, I have to go to the place now and get it.
And you know what though, and the thing is that what hosts us is our parents said, you know what, I'm not going to yell at you.
Right.
Just someday.
Yeah, you'll learn.
Someday, someone's going to do that to you.
Yeah, and you'll know.
And you'll know, and you're like, yeah, whatever. I'm not even going to live past 20. And then sure enough, you come out one day and somebody blew your mailbox apart with an M80, and then part of you is like, damn it, and then the other part of you is like, nice one.
Yeah. Like I was walking down the street. It's probably about 5 years ago in Beverly, Mass, with a couple friend of mine, and a car drove by and threw something at my face, and lo and behold, on the ground, just a fully wrapped McDonald's cheeseburger directly in my face. I was pissed for about 5 seconds, but I was also like, these kids. Everyone in their fucking school is going to know this whole story now. Like, we hit this fucking guy in the face. Yeah. He hit him right in the face.
Yeah, exactly.
This is so funny. I'm like, let's get hit in the face with a cheeseburger.
And then they're going to ramp it up, too.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, you hit him with a whole turkey.
Right,
a whole Thanksgiving dinner. And as the story grows and grows, you hit him with an entire McDonald's.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, that's the radness of being a teenager.
Oh, yeah, in the suburbs.
Yeah. So you've got this heavy metal music that's the background, that's a soundtrack for being a little dickhead.
Yeah, of course.
And everything that comes with it.
Yeah.
And then you're starting to play guitar a little bit. And I remember, like, my dad, like I was saying, how he hated rock.
Yeah.
He was like, we had to be in marching band and do band stuff, so I could read music and all that, but I hated it.
Yeah.
He's like, I was like, Dad, I've got money. I want an electric guitar. He's like, you're not getting an electric guitar.
Yeah.
He's like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. If I asked for drugs, he probably would have given me that. Or if I'd be like, Dad, I want an M16. Cool. But I'm like, I want an electric guitar. He's like, no.
Right.
Electric guitars are for losers. Anybody with long hair and a beard was like a weirdo.
Right.
Like, that was my dad's way of calling it. He was like a weirdo. He's like, weirdos have electric instruments.
Yeah.
You're not getting an electric guitar. So I'm like, all right, F you. I'm going to make an electric guitar.
Oh, yeah.
So I had another friend whose grandfather, he lived with his grandfather, and he had a wood shop.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and so when you're like 14 or 15, I don't even remember what it was. I know I wasn't driving because I had to get rides back and forth to this dude's house.
Yeah.
What do you make?
Right.
You make a fucking Flying V.
Right. Yeah.
And he had a busted Silvertone guitar.
Yeah.
So we stole the electronics from that. And I made a Flying V.
Nice.
It was actually, ended up calling it the Flying Y because it was just so horrible.
Right.
And I made a pick guard out of cardboard. And the grandfather was cool. He's like, what are you boys making?
Right.
And I'm like, we're making an electric guitar. And instead of stopping us and then like in just like breaking our hands,
right.
He's like, all right, let me help you. He helped us route out the part for where the silver
electronics.
Yeah. And the knob went and stuff.
Right.
And then when it came time to pick guard, I made one out of cardboard and spray painted it chrome.
Oh,
because
nice.
like chrome pick guard.
Oh yeah.
You know, Glenn Tipton, KK Downey.
Yeah.
What else? You know. So I made this guitar, and then he helped us figure out how to route it so that the neck would go on, and so that it would, and the neck always moved back and forth, so it never stayed in tune.
Right.
But we plugged it into my cousin's amp. My cousin was like one of the only people we knew who had an amplifier.
Yeah.
And by amplifier, it was the PA for the Little League. Mm-hmm. And he just, it's like he had it at his house by accident because his dad was involved in Little League.
Right.
So we plugged into that. And lo and behold, it made noise.
Yeah.
So the flying
awesome.
Flying Y.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what became the Flying Y.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, is that
I have no idea.
Before we started, you showed me.
And then later on, when like my brother and I had paper routes and we had more money, we were like, all right. Then when my dad realized that it wasn't just a passing fad, it's like he's like, well, I can either encourage these guys and kind of guide them to not turn into complete derelicts, or I can tell them no, and then they'll up the ante and like they'll steal a car just to spite me. Right. So finally he relented. He's like, well, I think the deal was, all right, you guys can have an electric guitar, but you got to take lessons. Right. That was his like aha moment.
Right.
It's like, okay, you guys can have nuclear weapons, but we're going to have this treaty that limits them.
Right.
He's like, I'll show you guys.
Yeah.
And his way of thinking was like, I'm going to make it so unfun to have an electric guitar that you're going to just get tired of it real quick.
Right.
He's like, you got to take lessons. Yeah. And we were like, oh, okay. So we're like, we luckily enough, we had my cousin's guitar teacher.
Yeah.
Who, his name's Tom Trebuzio.
Okay.
And the guy is a life changer.
Yeah.
So my dad liked Tom initially because they both went to the same music school, but like a bunch of years apart.
Right.
They both went to a music school in Connecticut.
Okay.
So my dad's like, oh yeah, this guy, even though Tom had long hair and he had long fingernails because he played finger picking style.
Right,
he looked like one of the Ramones.
Right. Yeah.
But my dad's like, all right, he's still okay because he went to Hart School of Music and he plays, he plays in a professional jazz band.
Yeah.
He's cool. So my dad walks out of the room. Tom closes the door and he's like, what do you guys like? We're like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. He's like, okay, here's the deal. Your lessons are an hour long. 45 minutes are going to be your scales and your theory and your exercises.
Right.
The last 10, 15 minutes are going to be what you want to work on.
Nice.
So we were like Sabbath, Maiden,
spring songs.
Yeah. And he knew it all because obviously he kept in touch with rock music and stuff. And so that made it bearable. And and so we would do all our stuff.
Yeah.
But then the last few minutes would be learning. I remember one of the first things we learned, because my brother and I were both playing together, and we only had enough money for one electric guitar.
Yeah.
So we had an acoustic guitar too. So Tom was like, all right, I'm going to teach you guys a song that has a guitar harmonies.
Right.
And it was, I think it was Charlotte the Harlot.
Oh, nice.
It was early Iron Maiden because it was Diano.
Yeah.
And he's like, and maybe it was Iron Maiden from the Iron Maiden album. Mm-hmm. Something that's got like dueling guitar parts that fit together. And my brother and I were like so psyched.
Yeah.
So that was us getting into music, and eventually, but we still had to play our regular band music too.
Right.
So my dad was like, "All right, I'll let you guys do this, but I am not going to make it easy on you jerks."
Right. Yeah.
So that's how that worked out for us.
So how did you make your way into punk rock from there?
So drafting class.
Yeah.
Sophomore year of high school. Mm-hmm. There was a kid in my class, God bless him, named Glenn McGregor.
Yeah.
And Glenn McGregor, drafting class was like it was a shop class, so you figure like all the kids who are going to be ruffians and hooligans are going to end up there. But drafting class was cool. It was awesome. There was a kid in my class named Glenn McGregor, and Glenn McGregor everybody was into BMX at the time, but Glenn was actually really good at it.
Yeah.
He raced, he did freestyle, he was into skateboarding. Yeah. And so everybody knew that him and one or two other kids were like different. Yeah. But nobody really knew what punk was. Like the closest you got was Johnny Slash from Square Pegs. Right. You know, like punk was having an OP shirt with a tail. Yeah. You know, like that's punk. Yeah. And Glenn McGregor had an OP shirt with a tail. Yeah. He was different. He would ride his BMX bike through school, and he has like if I had like a store bought BMX bike, he had really nice BMX bikes because he worked hard and he spent his money on bikes. He had a number plate. Remember, everybody had to have a number plate on your BMX bike, whether you did freestyle or whether you raced. You had a number plate, and you had all your stickers on there. You know, your Oakley, and you had your BMX Plus. He had a Black Flag sticker on his number plate, and I'm like, oh. And he also had checkered Vans. Yeah. You know, and only Spicoli had checkered Vans. So I'm like, oh. Maybe this dude's from California. Right. He's different. Like, he was from another side of town, so I didn't know him until high school. It's not like I grew up with him so I could know him. But he was different. But he and I got along pretty well because he drew, like, comic book stuff, and I drew comic book stuff. Okay. We were both pretty good in drafting class. Yeah. We were both smart asses. Yeah. So we got on. We got on great. And now, what's funny about seeing that Black Flag sticker was I recognized that. Because I don't know if you remember way back, it was either Hit Parade or Cream or like Metal Forces or like some shitty little rag. It had an SST ad in it. Really? A real tiny SST ad. Okay. Now, I would always pour through metal magazines, and we would study these like they were ancient artifacts for every bit. Like, you know, how does KK Downing have his guitar set? Right. Where's the treble at? Where's the volume at? So we study these things with like fine-tooth combs. And we'd also study for like, you know, what other bands are out there that are cool that aren't going to be Cinderella. You know. Right. And I saw this ad for Black Flag and SST Records. It was tiny. Right. I mean, and it was the Family Man of all things. It was the Family Man cover. Yeah, right. So that's probably will date when the thing was from. Maybe it was 84. 84. So I would have been 15. Yeah. And I saw this, and I'm looking at this ad, and I'm like, Black Flag. And I'm looking at the cover, and I'm like, it looks like it's a shitty drawing of a dude that just shot his whole family and himself in the head with a 45. Yeah. What's this about? And then there was like, it said something like there was supposedly a review of the record, and it was like heavier than Black Sabbath or something. And it was sure somebody at SST making some shit up and making up. And I was like, oh, I saw the word black in it. And I'm like, oh, it's probably like Black Sabbath. Right. It's going to be like just like Black Sabbath, you know, heavy stuff. It's like War Pigs or something. Right. And I just didn't think anything of it. Yeah. And then I see the sticker on, so jump forward and I see the sticker on Glenn's bike. And I'm like, what is this stuff? I didn't think anything more of it. Yeah. So Glenn and I got to be better friends as class went by. And I got my license. And then so one day he didn't have his bike, and he's like, hey, you know, could you do me a favor and give me a ride home? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, no problem. Now, like I've got my Iron Maiden, you know, my battle armor on, my Levi's jean jacket covered in Iron Maiden shit, and I've got I probably had the Iron Maiden pants where I drew Eddie doing all kinds of stuff and on it. And I'm like, yeah, I'll give you a ride home. Yeah. And I give him a ride home, and you know, we're talking about, and I probably have FM radio on. He's like, hey, man, I know you're into like heavy music, you know, come on in the house. I want you to check something out. Yeah. You know, and like he had a room in the basement to himself, which was like a dream to any kid. I had to share a bedroom with my brother. Yeah, of course. And so he had he had a bitchin' stereo. Yeah. So I'm like, oh cool, he's gonna put on some stuff that's gonna be like Iron Maiden or whatever. He's like, have you ever heard punk? And I'm like, yeah, man. You know, I'm like, yeah, Devo. Right. Blondie. Yeah. He's like, no. Have you ever heard hardcore? Right. I'm kind of paraphrasing. Right. You know, but it was something along those lines where like the dude was like a perfect salesman. Right. He's like, no, hardcore. And I'm thinking, well, Black Sabbath. Right. He's going to put on something like Queensryche. And I'm like, yeah. Like, you think you're cool. Right. I'll show you. Yeah. And he's like, check this out. Yeah. He puts on, I don't know the order, but the first two introductions that I had to hardcore punk were both covers. Mm-hmm. And I don't know the order, but it was Agent Orange, Somebody to Love.
Oh, yeah.
And then it was, so he puts that on. Like, I'll assume that he puts that on. Needle drops. He hands me the cover, and I'm looking at it, and it was from their EP, that When You Least Expect It.
Yeah, yeah.
It looked nothing like I had ever seen in terms of record. I flip it over, I'm like, who are these nerds?
Right.
Do these guys teach physics?
Yeah.
You know, it's them in like short sleeve shirts in recording studio.
Yeah.
Needle drops, and the first few notes of Somebody to Love comes on.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, I was like, what in the name of God is this? This is incredible. He's like, just listen.
Yeah.
You know, cranks it up even more. And I was like, dude, that was incredible.
Yeah.
He's like, that's nothing.
Yeah.
And he hits me pulls out Everything Went Black.
Oh, yeah.
And he puts on Louie Louie.
Oh, yeah.
With Dez singing.
Yeah.
And you know how that starts with the da-da-da, and then it goes into Gin's guitar.
Oh, yeah.
And I like something stopped. Like I had to step back.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is, and it's a short ass song.
Yeah.
And I'm like, play it again.
Yeah.
Play it again.
Yeah.
Play it again. He's like, I'm like, let me see that record. I'm like, so this is Black Flag.
Yeah.
And he plays me a couple other songs from that.
Right.
But like, I swear to God, I point to that as like a pivotal point in my life. Like my life just suddenly went in an entire, like it was planned out that I would do something else
right.
until that moment, and then my life went.
Yeah.
It took a complete 90-degree at that point.
Yeah. So did you immerse yourself in that
immediately
stuff with that friend, or did you?
Yes, he was my point of contact with all. I'm like, well, yeah. Obviously, I was like, well, dude, I got to go home. You got to tape me a bunch of this shit.
Yeah.
You got to tape me whatever you got of this.
Right.
And I got home and I told my brother about it. I'm like, listen.
Yeah.
Whatever you think you're into, that's cool. You haven't heard it.
Right.
And you know, while I was at Glenn's, I'm looking at the Everything Went Black.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing these flyers.
Right.
You know, that Pettibon drew.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like thinking I'm looking at legitimate Manson cult shit.
Yeah,
and I was, in a way.
Yeah.
And it was so far removed from anything I had ever been exposed to.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got this feeling. I'm like, somebody just kicked open a hole in reality, and you're seeing a whole nother reality.
Right. It's crazy, right?
So, yeah, he started making me mixtapes.
Yeah.
And then a few of our other friends like got into it simultaneously as well. And it was on. And then I was like, I'm like, how do I get more? Where do I find more?
Yeah.
Because it's not like you go to Strawberries
right.
and buy Discharge.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, we had a bunch of college radio stations around us. And I'm like, oh, college radio? Because I knew college radio because they had like heavy metal shows.
Right.
I would tune into that.
Yeah.
Or like I had somehow gotten into reggae, so I would listen to reggae. But the minute like a punk one, I turned it off.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, oh, now I will listen in for that.
Yeah.
And then he's like, well, I skateboard too. And I'm like, I'm going to skateboard too.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing this, you're going to do it right.
Yeah.
So he's like, well, there's Thrasher. So then like Thrasher became the Bible.
Yeah.
College radio.
Yeah.
There was an indie record store in our town called Record Breaker.
Okay.
And I mean, like they had one or two imports, but that was enough.
Yeah.
So that became the deal.
Nice.
That became, but more importantly too is that Glenn played guitar a little bit and I played guitar.
Yeah.
But we were like by listening to punk, I realized I could have a band.
Yeah.
Like it never occurred to me listening to Iron Maiden
right.
or Judas Priest.
Yeah.
I was like, I could never do this. I'm not even going to bother. I'm going to play their music, but I'm never going to write my own music.
Yeah.
Like music people write their own music.
Yeah.
But like I was listening to Fear the Record and like I was already playing guitar and I'm like, oh man, I can do this.
Yeah. Right.
And so it changed it. It was, that's why I say it was like the game changer of all game changers, being exposed to this.
Right.
It changed everything.
Yeah. And did you start a band from there, or?
Yeah, immediately.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely, we played and we rehearsed in my, there was another kid that was into BMX but wasn't into punk.
Okay.
He had a ramp.
Yeah.
He skated. So, but he played drums.
Right.
His favorite bands were like Rush and Creedence.
Oh, yeah.
But we're like, oh, you're going to like this then.
Right.
And so he just wanted to play with other people.
Yeah.
So we had this band in the basement of this guy Matt's house. And we were terrible, but it was cool because it was just a bunch of dudes goofing around.
There's nothing better than the memories of that. Like
Yeah.
when you first start realizing, like, oh, we can make like the sound of a band.
Yeah.
Even if it's hard, like if you listen to it now or whatever. But at the time, it was
game changing.
Yeah.
But I mean, I had never had the idea I could have a band and like even like cover Iron Maiden. It was I would go somewhere and see a cover band, and I'm like, oh, those dudes are like. They're music dudes, you know, whatever. But here we were playing like Wild Thing 48 times and playing Stepping Stone 89 times.
Right.
But then one day I was like, I'm gonna write my own song, and I don't even remember what spurned it. And it was an absolutely horrible song with dumb lyrics, you know. And the name of the band was The Conformers. But that was a game changer. I'm like, guys, I wrote a song, and they're like, what? You wrote a song?
Yeah.
And it was like 2.5 chords.
Yeah.
And I'm like, here's the lyrics.
Yeah.
And, you know, we did it. And then we're like, let's invite some girls over to hear our band.
Yeah.
You know, we invite these poor girls over who tolerated, like, music that, you know, they like the Smiths or whatever. They weren't ready for Suicidal or whatever trip we... By this time, it was like 7 Seconds and DOA and, like, those bands.
Yeah.
And so these girls tolerated it because they're like, well, you know, we like the Smiths and Depeche Mode. We're like, come hear our band. And they're like, cool. So, you know, it was like an hour and a half of tuning and then playing a little bit of Stepping Stone and Matt's mother being like, all right, guys, you're done. And so it wasn't an auspicious start, but it was fun as hell.
Yeah. Now,
it was definitely good.
Do you remember the first hardcore show that you ended up going to?
Yeah. So I had been into hardcore for a little while, and it was Black Flag on their last tour.
Oh, all right.
I saw them at a place called Studio New York, Enfield Roller World. And Enfield Roller had a lot of shows, actually. Like Slapshot played there, Suicidal played there.
Yeah.
It was a stop. So the idea to see Black Flag blew me away. Because I had been, before I'd been into punk, it was... You paid $35. You saw Scorpions in nosebleed seats. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go see Black Flag. Should I buy tickets? And people are like, you freaking. Now they would call you a noob. But they're like, obviously you've never done this before. No, you pay $5 or you fucking sneak in. So. I had been like, so obviously by having to see, being into punk, it was, okay, now I got to find out everything about punk. So you see Suburbia. Because you find out about another friend from another town who's a friend of a friend. He's got an 8th gen copy of Suburbia. And then another dude's got a 27th generation copy of Another State of Mind. So you're seeing all this, and that's, front loading you with, oh, that's how punk is. Because nobody else is going to tell you. And it's like, it's not on MTV. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to see Black Flag. Now, my idea of Black Flag was like everything went black. I didn't know that there was My War and Slip It In and all this other stuff. That like Black Flag was so far removed from 1979 Black Flag. They were past that. They had long hair, God forbid. They smoked dope. But I didn't know.
Instrumentals at the beginning of the show and stuff.
And it was Gone of all. It was Gone, Painted Willie. And Black Flag. And it was Rollins. And like I'm thinking, from watching Decline, I'm like, oh, cool, it's going to be Ron. Who I thought was Dez, who I thought was also. So I'm thinking that. And it was Black Flag. So I got all psyched to see him and everything. And by that time, I had changed my heavy metal jean jacket for like a punker jean jacket. And, it was a jean jacket covered in all punk shit. And like Suicidal skates, because I was skating by this time terribly. And so I had all my punker shit. It was like it was the loudest thing I had ever absolutely heard. And I saw like other punk kids. And I saw like, I knew what to expect from watching Suburbia. And like I saw Skinheads, and I'm like, okay, I saw you guys in Suburbia. You're probably gonna punch a bunch of dudes out. And I'm like, oh, I know how the pit works. I fell, somebody picked me up, somebody else fell, I picked them up. I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. It's like, I guess how the feeling is when you like solo fly an airplane. And stuff.
You're like,
I'm like, I'm at Black Flag. And but I'm like really, I'm hearing all this stuff that's not what I'm not hearing like Police Story. I'm not hearing Clocked In. I'm not hearing Nervous Breakdown. I'm hearing all the stuff that they want to play, which is like 12 minutes, like Rat's Eyes. And like I remember just like Gone being intolerable. And I didn't even realize. I'm like, oh, Greg Ginn's in 2 bands. you know.
Yeah, when I first saw them, it was St. Vitus, and at the time, I just remember thinking like, this is boring. It was like St. Vitus and I think Tom Tricoli's dog. It was the My War tour, and same kind of thing. I was like, oh, Black Flag.
Yeah.
They came out and did, you know, the 17-minute instrumental or
right.
The process of weeding out.
Yes.
And then they were pretty good at that point.
They were incredible, but they weren't what a 16-year-old pissed off kid needed.
And the openers were just, they would bring these bands.
Which is cool because I get what they were doing. But I didn't get what they were doing until much later.
Yeah.
But like when you're 16 and you're pissed off, you need it's not my imagination. I got a gun at my back.
Yeah.
Like that's the Black Flag in your mind.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to see. And what you're seeing is like three long hairs basically doing heavily distorted Grateful Dead.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And but it was cool. I saw Black Flag and I'm like, I could do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could really do that. And their instruments were shit.
Yeah.
They were held like, I remember Gins like had this shitty Ibanez that probably cost him $150. Right. It was held together with duct tape. And at the time I had some court guitar. I'm like, I could do this. You know, and stuff. So it was life changing from that standpoint. I'm like, I can do this. And I'm not gonna play 17-minute long hair songs. But I can do what these guys are doing. You know, so
Nice. And then so you got a little more serious playing music.
Well, what happened was that from that point, like doing that and seeing that, I was like, I'm not gonna play in the school band anymore. I'm done with that. And I'm also not taking guitar lessons anymore. And like I told, and like my dad was like, all right, you don't have to, but you gotta explain you owe it to your teacher why you're not gonna. And like I was like, listen, Tom. No offense to you, you've been so great to us. You know, so I wasn't even taking lessons that long. But it was, you know, I'm like, you've been so great because he would encourage us. You know, to get into rock. You know, like when my dad would like check in and be like, all right, you guys are doing your scales, you know, your Phrygian, Mixolydian, and he'd walk out and Tom would be like, all right, now the middle bridge of War Pigs is this. You know, so I was like, listen, Tom, the deal is that I want to write my own music. I want to write songs. I want to do band. I want to do punk stuff. Tom's like, perfect, because he's like, Rocket from Russia is one of my favorite songs. And I didn't even know the Ramones. I was too into hardcore punk, you know, in air quotes. He's like, cool. Best luck, whatever I can do to help you. Have at it, have fun. You're gonna have a lot of fun. Hopefully I gave you. So it was with his blessings. And my dad was expecting it to be like, oh, you really let him down, and now you cut off a pinky, like the Yakuza. And I'm like, well, Tom was cool with it. So it was like, but from the all the hardcore, like my favorite tape. That my buddy made me was side 1 was First Suicidal LP. Side 2 was Welcome to Venice.
Oh, nice.
And that was my jam. I would play that constantly. Skateboard to school. Play that. Skateboard home. Play that. You know, do my chores. Play that. Do everything to that. One day I'm in study hall. And like a headbanger dude that I was friends with, he was like, "What are you listening to, man?" Because of course, the volume's up at a billion, you know, ear destroying. And so I played him some of Beowulf and No Mercy. He's like, "So this is punk?" He's like, "Dude, if you like this, you got to check out this band Metallica." And I think this was just when Ride the Lightning came out. So I'm like, all right, I'll check them out. Stole the tape, of course. And I'm like, this isn't that bad. And because earlier I had heard Metallica and I wrote him off because I'm like, that guy's voice sucks. Now after listening to like punk for a year and a half, and like, you know, after Keith Morris, you're like, this guy's voice isn't too bad. So I'm like, this is good. I'm into this. So I started to get into crossover too because I'm like, all right, I can be cool because, you know, I don't know if you did this when you first got into punk. You're like, buy Iron Maiden.
Oh yeah. No,
you know, which definitely is a dick thing to do in a way. Because then later on, when people would do that, I'd be mad at them. I'd be like, no, don't throw away Tull just because you like Agnostic Front now.
I know, right?
You know, Tull's a great band, but I did it at first.
You
know. So so then I was like, oh, the thrash thing was up. And so then by this time I was going to the record store pretty regularly, and I was buying like Life Sentence. I loved that record.
Yeah.
Like that was perfect to me. I'm like, I can play this.
Yeah.
This is so poorly produced. It sounds like they, and I had a Gorilla amp. It sounds like they recorded on a Gorilla amp.
That's the amp you just showed me.
Yeah, exactly. Still have it. Yeah,
That's
bought with paper. Oh, maybe we got it for the Christmas present.
Yeah.
I forget. But anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it, and I was like started to get more serious. Like now I want to play this stuff.
Yeah.
And I started to see like. I saw like Megadeth, and I saw like as thrash started to come up, like I had some other friends who were like, oh, you got to check out the Anthrax, you got to check. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, you got to check out Youth Brigade,
right?
And it was kind of give and take, and it was cool. That was a pretty cool time period,
good time,
and so it worked out, and it also dovetailed with the time when it was me to like get out of high school and like go away and figure out what to do, and what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I was like, well, I found out luckily at the last minute, because like my guidance counselors were useless. They're like, what do you want to do? And I knew what I wanted to do. I'm like, I want to go to the Joe Kubert comic book art school, which is a legitimate real school. And they're like, where did you hear about this? I think you made it up. So I brought an issue in of a comic book, and I'm right here. Right. They're like, we're guidance counselors. We're not sending you to a school in the back of a fucking comic book.
Right.
Forget it.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to become a drafting person, and you'll go to a state school.
Right.
So luckily I found out about art school.
Right.
And I'm like, I think maybe, but the idea was kind of amazing. I'm like, they teach you to draw comic books somewhere?
Right.
So I'm like, I'll go to art school. And like the art schools, I don't know remember how I settled on either going to go to RISD or I'm going to go to Pratt.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I settled on Pratt, because New York is full of art schools. Yeah. And by this time, I had already discovered AF. That was a game changer.
Yeah.
I had already discovered Cro-Mags. Yeah. And we were well aware. And music magazines then were covering the crossover scenes. So they would cover they were covering L'Amours. Yeah. They were covering CBs. Yeah. So we were like, my thing was like, well, obviously I'm going to go to New York. Right. Because CBs and L'Amours and Nuclear Assault. I'm like, I'm going to see like Nuclear Assault when I got that record, game changer. Yeah. Nuclear Assault and all that. So I'm like, I'm going to New York. Yeah. And I'm going to, go to, and once I visited the school and met the people there, I was like, I'm going to New York. Yeah.
Were you going to hardcore shows in New York? Were you close enough to there that?
No, what I was going to was like the Anthrax.
The Anthrax, yeah.
Which was basically almost in New York, but that once I went to that show and studio in New York, I met more people, and then more of my friends were they're like, hey, we're going to go check out the Anthrax. Right. And I thought they meant the band Anthrax. I'm like, cool, let's go. And we went to this club, which is real far away. But, we saw bands there. Like I saw 7 Seconds. I was psyched to see 7 Seconds there. But unfortunately, it was like when they were like morphing into like U2 Junior. And it was like I was going thinking I'm going to see Walk Together, Rock Together. Right. And I'm ready to get going, to 99. They're covering 99 Red Balloons. And they're doing these U2-ish songs. And I'm like, feeling gypped. But it was great. I was at the Anthrax. I'm seeing Kevin Seconds. Cool. Everybody in the band was great. I'm studying the guitar moves, the bass moves. So that was my bigger. But I wasn't going to New York. I wasn't going to Boston. I was aware of shows there. But it may as well have been LA. I was getting music from Boston. Like I remember acquiring the Straw Dogs tape. Okay. They only had like 6 songs. It was the EP.
Yeah, it almost looked like the Judas Priest one, the green.
Yeah. And it was I forget what it was called, but it had to cover Tie Your Mother Down. So I'm like, I'm getting this. This is rules, and I loved it. So I played that constantly. We'd skate to that. Nice. That was perfect to skate to. So I was aware of shows in Boston. I was aware of like stuff going on. But I never went far away, because it's like I never had a vehicle capable of surviving the trip. Right. And it's like just getting back and forth from the Anthrax, which is kind of far from where I was living, was an adventure in itself. So that was our brush with it. So then when I finally did move to New York, yes, I started going to shows there. But when I was just in Connecticut, but that was, again, going to New York shows. And having been just going to Connecticut shows, it didn't prepare you for what you were getting into. Seeing Suburbia 83 times doesn't prepare you for your first CB's matinee. So, and my first day of moving into college, I met Joe Keith, who was going to become the bass player of Yuppicide.
Right, right.
And in another one of those moments where your life goes, takes a huge turn.
Yeah.
I'm moving all my crap, and by this time I have a shaved head.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm rolling up my jeans. I'm wearing what I think are suspenders, but they're like these ridiculous, grandpa suspenders. Yeah, exactly, seatbelt suspenders, not braces.
Right, right.
I'm wearing lager boots, but I have them laced up like a skinhead.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm wearing all this shit. I'm wearing like a Fred Perry, but acid wash jeans.
Right.
And I see, I'm moving into school, and I see this dude, show up on a skateboard.
Yeah.
And he's got a shut skateboard deck. Mm-hmm. He's got a bleached flat top.
Yeah.
A sleeveless agnostic front shirt, 14-hole Doc Martens, and he's doing kickflips.
Yeah.
And I was like, that dude, and my parents looked and they're like, that dude is going to ruin our son's life. and basically I was like, there's my new best friend forever.
Yeah.
And he took me under, that's Joe, and he took me under his wing from that day forward. And he's like, yeah, you're coming to the school, and, we'll take you to CB's matinees. I'll introduce you to all the people.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, by the way, do you play any instruments? And I'm like, yeah, I brought my guitar. And he's like, oh, I play a little bit of bass.
Yeah.
And from that point forward,
Yeah.
like everything fell into place.
Yeah, yeah. Nice.
It was, he's like, I'll take you to get your first pair of Doc Martens and all that. He became, like, I never had an older brother.
Yeah.
He became like the best older brother that you could ever imagine.
Nice.
And I owe so much to Joe.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was a turning point right there. Like the very first day of moving into school, an art school in Brooklyn, New York, you meet this dude who's going to change your life. Yeah. So that was rad.
Nice.
Super, super rad.
And he remained the bass player in the band the whole.
Yeah, exactly. So he and I, if you want to get back, down to brass tacks, he and I are the constant members.
Yeah.
Jesse, like that Yuppicide kind of started as a college goof around band with some different members. We were playing hardcore covers at keggers.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And like at college, like we played in like the student union, but we were playing like what was popular at the time in hardcore. Yeah. Like we were playing Underdog, playing Uniform Choice. We were playing a couple of Misfits songs. Yeah. Just hardcore covers. Yeah. A couple lineup changes happened, and I was writing kind of in the background, but I'm like, oh, this stuff's not good enough to show to these guys. Right. We had another guy in the band who kind of wanted to run the band. A really good guitar player. He could sing. Right. A little bit older, and some ultimatum happened where he's like, if something doesn't go his way, he was going to leave the band. Right. And we were just finally so tired of his shit. We're like, all right, go. Right. And then he left, and the remaining members was like, it was like the drummer at the time and the bass player. And we were like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I'm like, guys, I have songs. Yeah. And then we got Jesse in to be our singer. Okay. And from that point forward, that's like when the band really began. Yeah. When that fella stepped out, Jesse stepped in. Yeah. I think it was 2 months, then we recorded our first demo. Yeah. Like for like a year, maybe year and a half, the band just played covers and just goofed around. It was a joke band. Right. We covered a bunch of Murphy's Law songs. Yeah. We were like the Murphy's Law of college. We were like a college band. Yeah. But from that point forward, we were like, I'm like, guys, I have songs. Yeah. They're like, what? I'm like, I've been writing all these songs, but nobody really wanted to hear them until now. We're like, well, that guy never wanted to hear your stuff. Yeah. But then when we wanted to, we're like, all right, well, let's get serious about this. Yeah. And we were like, let's record a demo. Yeah. And that's when it was 88. Some point in 88, the band it fell into place. Jesse Jones became the singer. Yeah. Joe remained the bass player all the way through. I was the guitar player, for better or worse. That was the seed of the band. And from that point forward is when we went forward. Nice. And then we recorded a little cornball demo on like somebody had a tape deck that had 2 microphones like this setup here. Yeah. And we recorded a cheesy demo just to give out to friends. But it was original music. Yeah. And it was good enough that like people in other bands were like, I'll put you on a show. Yeah, nice. And then, but they were like, listen, you're going to have to record a real ass demo. Right. This will do for us to get you on shows. Yeah. But, and then we recorded our first demo at a place that's no longer there. It's called Coyote Studios in Williamsburg. Okay. And Coyote was a really cool, it was a rehearsal place,
Yeah.
and it was a recording studio. But they recorded like a lot of bands that were garage punk bands. Like they didn't deal with hardcore.
Right.
You know, they dealt with like bands that were like, I don't know if you ever heard of a band called the Devil Dogs.
Yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah.
And Devil Dogs were like kind of like if you mixed Dead Boys with like the Dictators.
Okay.
Like that era
kind of
of New
stuff.
York.
Yeah, yeah.
Like more garagey
Right.
rock and roll based punk.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all, you know, really good at that. Was their trip. They loved that kind of punk.
Yeah.
And we come along and we were like, yeah, we want to record. And they're like, what kind of band are you guys? We're like, we're a hardcore band. And they're like, what's
Right.
that? Because these guys were like greasers.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like kind of greasers. Or like
Right.
they were into like New York Dolls.
Right, right.
We're like, what's a hardcore band even
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
We're like, you know, Cro-Mags. We're
Right.
thinking everybody knows a Cro-Mag. Even my mom knew the Cro-Mags, to tell you the
Right.
truth. And they're like, drew a blank. We're like,
Right.
you know, AF, drawing a blank. You're like, Side by Side, drawing a blank. Nausea, nothing. And we're like, and I was like, oh, Motorhead. They're like, oh,
right.
why didn't you say? And they're
Right.
like, we're like, Ramones. They're like,
Right.
we're like, all right, we sound like if you mix Ramones with Motorhead. So then they're like, okay, now we have an
Right.
idea of like how to even deal with you
Yeah,
things. And we recorded our first demo.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it is what it is. But
Right.
it was just us not knowing what we were doing.
Yeah,
The
of course.
people at the studio, awesome people, they had no idea what to do with us.
Right, right.
They didn't know what we were looking for.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we were looking for.
Yeah.
But it was good enough. It was that cassette tape with the dog on the front.
Yeah, yeah.
And the cassette cover looks way better than what you're going to hear.
Right.
But we managed to sell those and give them out and start getting gigs, you know, on our own. And that's
Yeah.
like, and if you remember like how hardcore was, like you had a demo tape out, okay, you were
Yeah.
somebody.
Right,
and then
right.
from there, it was mandatory. You were doing a 7-inch right
Yeah, oh,
after
yeah.
that at some
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
You know, once you had a 7-inch,
Right.
you were
There
ready
go.
for Radio City Music Hall,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
You know, and that's basically, we had the demo tape out and we were
Yeah.
able to start playing
Yeah.
places like CB's.
Yeah.
And we were able to start playing all the shows, like wherever was having gigs, we were able to start
Yeah.
playing on that demo. And that's a terrible demo.
Right.
And like we really struggled with whether we were going to put it on our anthology, but I'm like,
Yeah.
guys, we have to.
Yeah, yeah. It's
We
part of your.
have to put
Yeah,
it
it's
on
part of
there.
your history.
Yeah, and you know the curse of hardcore and punk is the demo was better.
Right. Yeah.
And this is not a case of that. But I'm like, we have to have it on there,
Yeah, yeah.
just so it,
Yeah,
it
of
needs
course.
to be there.
Yeah.
You know, so from there, it's we were able to start playing
Yeah.
shows that we needed
Oh, of course.
to play.
Do you remember the first time you guys got put on like a good show with like, you know, the bigger bands where you're?
I don't. I remember we were starting to play. You know, the big thing was playing CBs.
Yeah.
That was your goal.
Yeah.
We were playing everywhere but CBs just because
Yeah.
of scheduling.
Yeah,
and just
yeah.
because we had to get the tape to the right person
right.
and they had to find a slot for us. We were playing, like, I think our first show in Manhattan
Yeah.
as a band not playing covers.
Right.
I don't remember it. I remember the flyer, but we were on with like 11 other bands.
Yeah, yeah, of
and
course.
we did it. I don't remember it. I remember it's probably a club that's no longer there.
Right.
But I remember our first CB's matinee.
Yeah.
We were terrified because I had been going to CB's.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So now to be like, oh, now I'm going to be on the same stage where like bands I worship.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I'm going to be on the same stage as Token Entry.
Right.
I'm going to be on the same stage as Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
So that was a huge deal
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah.
And I remember doing that.
Yeah.
And that was huge. And we ended up playing CB's, you know, a bunch over time. But I remember that first CB's show.
Yeah.
It was kind of a blur.
Yeah.
And I think we used to practice a lot. So thank
Yeah.
God, I think we were decent.
Yeah.
And I think we sold demos.
Right.
And we had shirts. We were doing all our own artwork too, and we were trying to do distinctive artwork. I think that's one of the things that the band did early on that because Jesse and Joe are older than me.
Yeah.
And the thing is that Jesse's very first hardcore show was the Effigies at CB's in like
Oh, wow.
81.
Jeez, yeah.
So he saw Effigies. He saw Minor Threat.
Yeah.
He saw Negative Approach.
Wow.
And he actually ended up getting out of hardcore and coming back into hardcore for this band.
Yeah.
So he kind of brought a different aesthetic to it.
Yeah.
And everybody in the band, it's like the Clash. We met at art school.
Right,
We all
yeah.
met at art school, so everybody was in the graphic arts. So we were
Yeah.
bringing that into the
Oh, yeah.
game too.
Yeah.
And So we knew we wanted to like do stuff a little bit differently.
Yeah.
We wanted to kind of stand out.
Yeah.
Even though at that time the music was pretty fucking generic.
Yeah, yeah.
But at least artwork, it stood out. We were we had access to an art school, so we screened our own shirts.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and we used we stole ink and made multicolored shirts, and you know, we tried to do different stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when we finally played CB's, we you know, we had shirts for sale, and we had a bunch of our friends with us wearing our stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And so our first foray, though, as a band, like our big band thing that we were going to do, we made these shirts that had a silkscreen of a screwdriver with the no, like the Ghostbusters no through it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because at that time, like white power music was starting to infiltrate hardcore more.
Yeah, yeah.
And like it was funny, like you'd go to a show and there'd be a black dude with a screwdriver shirt on and Doc Martens. Yeah, and I was like confused by that.
Right, right.
So there was a big show. Yeah. Oh, it was a Halloween show. It was like Murphy's Law and the Dickies at the Ritz or something. And we wore these anti-screwdriver shirts there. Yeah. And we got a lot of like hard looks. Yeah. But we're like, all right, we're going as a band and we're going to like present, you know, this united front. Yeah. They didn't say Yuppicide or anything on it, but we had these shirts. Yeah. Because we were like, we wanted to say, you know, no racism and stuff. And so from that, we learned, all right, we're going to make our own shirts. We're going to silk screen our own shit. Yeah. So we were lucky in that. You had a bunch of art nerds in the band, for better or worse. Right, right. You know, so, but yeah, that was what CB's was, and then we ended up playing more shows here and there. And people started to book us in other places too. Yeah. Basically, we would play anywhere and everywhere. You call us up, we'd play. Yeah, yeah. We were playing squats. Yeah. You know, we'd play benefit shows. Yeah. We'd play everywhere that had shows. Yeah. We would play within, like, we'd play in Brooklyn, we'd play in Manhattan. Yeah. Anywhere. We were playing as many shows as we can. Yeah. Illegal warehouse shows. Yeah, yeah. You know, whatever it took. We were just playing all these shows. Nice. Because we didn't care. Right. You know, we didn't want. Or it's not like, okay, we're only going to play with Revelation bands. Right, right. I'm like, we're into punk, we're into hard, we're going to play wherever. We'll play with ska. We play with ska bands. Yeah, yeah. If it's underground, we're going to play with it. Yeah, yeah. You know, we're going to do. We play with like hip hop groups. Yeah, yeah. Early hip hop. Yeah. It was cool. We were playing with everybody and anybody, and so you know that was our trip. Yeah, yeah. We were going to do that.
I feel like that era too of because this would have been.
This was like 88, 89. Yeah.
I feel like that kind of things seem to start to be okay with.
Yeah, because Fishbone was huge, if you remember. They were,
Yeah, and just bands not having to be like just a traditional hardcore band, like just everything sounds like Negative Approach or.
Right, yeah. It was like also, too, there was like a lot of metal was coming in, and I don't know if this happened out your way, but in New York there was pushback, too. Yeah. Like a lot of metal came in. Like a lot of long-haired dudes were coming to shows, and first people were cool with it because, like, you'd always have like Dan Looker would be at every show. Yeah. Nicest guy ever in the universe in the history of nice people is Dan Looker. Yeah. He'd be at every show. Yeah. He loved hardcore more than most hardcore kids, but he had long ass hair and he liked like Sodom and you know whoever else and Voivod. Yeah, yeah. But there was pushback at New York. They were like, you know, and Anthrax crossed the line when they tried to incorporate the NYHC thing. Yeah. That was not a good move on their part because there was a CB's matinee I was at, and somebody got up on stage. I forget who it was, and they're like, "Fuck Anthrax for trying to incorporate that. Long hairs, your days at these shows are numbered. Get out." Yeah. And I was like, "Ooh, a line's been drawn." Right. You know, so but I think that kind of also signaled a time in New York when shows started to get, and we reflected that in our music. Like shows started to get like. Bad. Yeah, yeah. Like New York was always known for like have rough shows, but it wasn't kids turning on each other. Right, right. It was like, hey, we dance hard, we pick each other up, and then we go out for a slice of pizza or whatever. Right. And it was cool. Like kids were known to have like hard dance slamming styles, of course, but it wasn't like I'm gonna smash kids in the head that I don't know. Right, right. And it started to get like that. Yeah. And I think. People thought, oh, that's New York hardcore. Right. So people would see that and think, I got to do that. Right. And I know Boston bands started to pick up like that too. Yeah, yeah, and the Boston and New York rivalry was like in the background, and it was there, kind of there too. And it's like hardcore kind of took on this thing where we're like, we as a band, it's not like we're going to play music. Right. We're going to be like, Fugazi would be like, all right, if you guys slam, sit down. I mean, I wrote parts intending for people to stage dive and dance hard to. Yeah, yeah. So we were like throwing gas on the fire, but we're like, we can't let this be a thing where
Right.
these kids are going to... And that's where you saw the scene kind of like...
Split up a little
ABC, no Rio kind of
Right.
drifted away. And there was that kind of like that division.
Yeah.
Maybe it was like the scene got too big.
Yeah,
Because everything started to... Remember, like, everything started to specialize.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we're like Oi bands. We're only
Right.
going to play with Oi bands.
Yeah, yeah.
We're like political punk. We're only
Right.
going to play with political punk
Right.
bands. We're like kind of like funk hardcore. We're only going to play with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Gone were the days of seeing 5 really different
Yeah, yeah,
bands.
yeah.
You know, and we didn't want to choose, you know, we didn't choose a side.
Yeah.
We're like, we'll play ABC No
Wherever.
Rio on one
Right.
weekend with a bunch of like dirty political squatter bands that we
Right.
love.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we'll play CBs the next weekend with Vision.
Yeah, yeah.
And Token Entry.
Yeah.
Cool. We love
Yeah.
it all. It's
Yeah.
all good music. We're
Yeah,
not
definitely.
choosing a side. They're
Yeah.
all these people are great to us.
Yeah, yeah.
But somewhere lines were getting drawn,
Right, right.
you know, and we didn't care.
Yeah.
We were like, I'll play wherever,
Yeah.
you know, wherever we need to.
Yeah.
And somewhere in there, we ended up doing our 7-inch.
Yeah, okay.
Because we got a song on the Look at All the Kids Now
Oh, yeah,
comp. And that was this guy, Sam Evac.
Mm-hmm.
And he had the idea, he came from Detroit, and he's like, I love New York,
Yeah.
but I like these bands that are not getting the big press.
Right.
Like, they're not getting, you know, they're not rev bands.
Right, right.
I like these bands that are kind of flying below the radar,
Yeah.
but they're still firmly hardcore punk.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and his idea was to kind of give those bands a little bit of
Yeah.
a catapult. So he put us on that comp, which was awesome.
Yeah. So
You know,
SFA on it? No.
it had Moondog, it had Bad Trip. I believe SFA. SFA probably is on there.
Yeah.
And from there, Sam was like, "Hey, I want to do a 7-inch with you guys."
Yeah.
And he's like, "I want you to work with Don Fury."
Yeah.
And we knew Don Fury because he remixed the song that went on that comp.
Right, right.
Because it was from our demo and it was just atrocious.
Right,
and our
right.
singer, I think our singer redid the vocals with Don.
Okay.
And Don remixed it and made it to something we could use
Yeah, yeah.
and not be horrible.
Right, right.
With like bands like Moondog, who
Yeah,
was
yeah.
ex-Gorilla Biscuits, which
Right.
was incredible.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to stand out from that.
Yeah.
So we did our 7-inch with Don.
Yeah.
And with this guy, Sam.
Okay.
And that was us meeting Don for the
Yeah,
first
yeah.
time and working with him.
Yeah.
And that was us being in the studio really for the first...
Yeah.
Again, we were still virgins in the
Yeah.
studio. And I didn't know what to make. Like, I
Yeah.
met Don, and like I'd heard Don Fury, and everybody
Right.
recorded with Don Fury, because, I
Right.
mean, everybody had that Revelation
Yeah,
records, you know, whatever, and everybody knew what... And I met him, and, you know, he looked like a greaser.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm
yeah.
like, what does Fonzie know about this shit? You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
And that's me being a dickhead.
Right, right.
And, you know, we go to his studio, and you had to walk down these stairs,
Yeah.
and there's this big door covered with Xeroxes of all the records he's done.
Yeah.
And 7 inches and 12 inches.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at all these records, and Victim in Pain's on there. I'm like, we're good. We're in
Right.
good hands. That's all I needed to see.
Right, right.
You know, because Victim in Pain was a game changer
Oh,
for
yeah.
us punk kids in Connecticut. Before
Yeah,
I
yeah.
moved to New York,
Okay.
you know, getting Victim in Pain was an absolute game changer.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so then I saw the Victim in Pain, and this is the first time I saw the Victim in Pain band cover.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
all we had in Connecticut was the black cover.
Yeah,
which
okay.
made the record even more
Right.
ominous,
Yeah,
by the
yeah,
way.
yeah.
So I'm like, all right, we're in good hands.
Yeah.
But we also kind of let Don call a lot of the shots.
Right.
But it was really great working with him
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I like, all right, we're on our way, and it was like, we're making a 7-inch, man.
Right. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and you know, it was the first time we had somebody that was like producing us as opposed to just engineering us.
Right, right.
He'd be like, guys, do that again.
Yeah.
Maybe play all in time.
Yeah.
Maybe tune. You know, just basic
yeah.
shit that you're
Right.
like, oh, we are so amateurish.
Right, right.
But like, and you know, that started a really great relationship with
Yeah.
Don.
Yeah, yeah.
But there was still like, I don't know how much I trust this guy.
Yeah.
And you know, because I was dead set in my ways.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and one of my ways that my like fundamentalism was like, I didn't use pedals.
Yeah.
I'm not going to use a pedal.
Yeah.
So then when it came time for me to do a couple solos, Don was like, I need you to use a pedal on some of your solos. I'm like, fuck that. I don't use solo. I don't
Yeah.
use pedals.
Right.
He's like, I have a rat pedal. I want you to use that. I'm like, that thing's a piece of shit. I
Right.
don't want to use it. He goes, Vinny Stigma used it on Victim in Pain. I'm like, let's plug in.
Right.
He like knew how to talk to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's like,
That's
this is the same setup that we use for United Blood. I'm like, if you'd said that from the start,
Right.
Don, I would have trusted you
Yeah, yeah,
implicitly.
yeah, of
Why
course.
did this come up now? So we did the 7-inch.
Yeah.
And it came out on Evac Records.
Yeah.
And then another label ended up picking it up, and it came out, and we did the artwork for it, and it came out. So now we had something to sell. So we're soaked. We're selling it, and we can get more shows. And then another label was like, hey, we're friends with Sam. We don't know if you guys are getting the proper exposure. Sounds too rockish, but we don't think you guys are getting out. We want to work with Sam to get your record out. We really like you. We're a new label starting up. We love hardcore. We love punk. We love New York stuff. And we're called Wreck Age. Do you want to work with us? And we were like, Sam, we trusted Sam at this time. He was getting tattooed by a friend of ours that we got tattooed by. So we're like, Sam, and he's like, yeah, it's cool. It's cool. And so that was Wreck Age Records. So Wreck Age re-released the 7-inch on theirs. We didn't remaster it or anything. We just added. I think we didn't change the art. We just added like a Wreck Age thing. But the beauty is that Wreck Age was tied in with Europe. So they're like, we're getting this thing out overseas. Like their distro in Europe was like, was perfecto. Because Europe distribution was different than America. Like somebody, the next town over from us would have never heard of Yuppicide. But the thing was all over Europe.
That's funny.
So that began our relationship with those guys. And it continued with Don with that into our first LP. The LP with Don was amazing because at this time we'd been playing a lot. Yuppicide was, like I said, we took every show we could get. We rehearsed a lot. We wrote a bunch. So when it came time to do our first LP, Wreck Age was like, all right, we want you guys to put out an LP. We're like, we put out a 7-inch. We put out a demo. Now we're going to do an LP? Oh my God. I mean, this was it. This was the deal. So we did everything we needed to do in 14 hours.
Wow.
We recorded basic tracks, overdubs, and mixed it. Or basic mixes in 14 hours. Like we just went in there because we were paying for it. So we went in there having practiced the hell out of those songs. And some of the songs, to be fair, like your first album, those songs aren't new. You've been playing them forever. You know, like I'm Kill 'Em All. I'm sure those songs, they've been playing them, for ages. So we went in there, we played them all, and we banged them out, and we didn't get fancy with it. And Don didn't get us us too fancy. But it was more of us learning to work with him and vice versa. He already knew what equipment we used and how we kind of played. And so then we put out our first LP. And we did all our own artwork. And that was incredible. Like to have a record out. Like it was just amazing. And from there it was like, all right, you guys got a tour. And we're like, tour? What are you talking about? And they're like, well, we mean Europe. And now we've been playing like up and down the East Coast, or basically the Northeast. It's not like we went to Florida. But like within a range of like, New York City, we played, a little bit here and there. And they're like, it's time to tour. You guys need to get out and promote this stuff. We're like, Europe? I'm thinking like only rock bands go to Europe, you know? There's no way we're going to Europe. And they're like, we're like, well, shouldn't we do America? And they're like, well, you could. So as a band, we talked amongst ourselves. We're like, all of us were working like 3 or 4 jobs because it's expensive as fuck to live in New York. So we're like, we've only got this fixed amount of time to be away. How can we use this time to our best advantage? How can we miss work, probably lose a job or two, probably lose our relationships with whatever gals we were dating at the time or whatever was going on, but still not have something to show for it concrete. And our drummer, we actually at that time we shared the drummer with SFA, guy John. And John went to Europe. He came back. He's like, we got to go to Europe. He's like, we survived. He's telling us all these stories. Some of our horror stories, and some are good. But we had heard horror stories about going to Europe too from other friends' bands. So we ended up. We were like, long story short, we go to Europe. And it was not easy. It was fun. But it was like it was almost 3 months. It was 60-something dates.
Oh, wow.
With maybe 3 days off. We ended up taking another day off because one of the drives was some obscene drive from somewhere to Vienna. And we're like, we're not doing that. And our drummer had played a lot of these shows, so he's like, oh, if we miss that show, it doesn't matter because we played that club and it sucked. So we did the European tour, and it was 3 months, and it was a slog, but it was great because we went in on the ground floor. We played mostly squats, mostly youth centers.
Oh, wow.
It was punk rock.
Yeah,
you know, it wasn't. We were so virgin. We brought our own heads.
Yeah,
this is the stupidest thing.
Right.
You're gonna fly the heaviest piece of equipment you have overseas, and our drummer brought all his goddamn drums.
Really?
So long story, we went to Europe with $10 in our pockets because we had to pay all this overages to ship all our junk, which we shouldn't have brought with us. That's what virgins we were.
Right.
So we're doing the tour, and we're playing squats, and we're playing youth centers, and we're playing all this stuff, and some people knew this is, and our LP wasn't even out.
Right.
So luckily, people knew us from the demo, and they knew us from the 7-inch, and there was also a couple compilations out that had us on it.
Yeah.
So people knew us.
Yeah.
But it was like getting used to how European punk rock and American punk rock at that time.
Yeah.
You know, the running joke was like, Europe's like 5 to 10 years behind us. So. And it kind of, at that time, they were just getting in the thick of it all. But mostly they were in the MDC.
Yeah.
So they were expecting us to be a very political band, given our band name and given our lyrics.
Yeah.
And they had nothing else to go on because there weren't a lot of interviews with us that they were getting.
Yeah.
Maximum Rock and Roll hated us, so it's not like they're going to get MMR and get this in-depth interview with us.
Yeah.
And so they formed their own opinions of who we were. Yeah. And everybody liked Born Against a lot.
Yeah.
And because Born Against played ABC No Rio, and we played ABC No Rio, I think people made the connection. They're like, oh, Yuppicide is one of those ABC No Rio bands.
Right.
Meaning they're going to be very... they're going to basically be MDC Junior, which is great because we had ideas in that way. But we also love to fuck around and read comic books and goof and just have fun and play loud music. So there was a bit of culture shock for them and for us dealing with Europe at that time. But I'm glad we did that. We learned a lot about music. And the people we played for and with and then to, we played with a very lot of political folks. Who took shit seriously. Seriously. They meant it. Like you had to believe this shit. Like you couldn't say "smash the state" as a joke. They were like, if you said "smash the state," they were putting on their boots and lighting a torch. They're like, "Let's go." We've smashed the state before. We're doing it again. We're like, dude, it's a joke. It's a joke. It's cool. So they expected us to be that. So it was kind of there was some culture shock.
What you said Maximum Rock and Roll didn't like you guys?
No, they didn't like us. They gave us a real shitty review. They said, band's not bad, but fake English accent gets on our nerves. And we're like, dicks, the guy's from London. They're like something like along the lines of yet another New York band trying to have a British accent, and they had an issue with AF. And I don't know if you remember that. I don't want to reignite that shit. But also there was also schism in the scene, man. In the New York scene where it was kind of like stupid split. It's like, in effect, was like you either chose In Effect Records or you chose to be on the Born Against side of things. And I'm like, fuck it, I love Sick of It All. I stood in line waiting for their first 7-inch. But I love Nausea. I love Nausea and I love Apple. I love them both. I'm not choosing sides.
Exactly.
Whereas some people, especially in Europe, certain people, not everybody, some people needed you to take a side. And we weren't going to take a side. I'm like, I love those dudes. I love AF. I love everybody in AF. They're super cool people. I love everybody in Nausea. I love everybody. I love the political bands as well. We're not taking sides.
And that's sort of what I was saying before we started was, I think your band always sort of in the New York scene reminded me in Boston of the Freeze. Because you guys kind of, cool. guys kind of did your own thing. And just kind of, musically, aesthetically, and just, it's very similar, I think.
To our better or worse, like, we never fell in with, like, a crew or we got along with everybody.
And it wasn't because you didn't get along, It was
and I love those dudes. I'd go see Murphy's Law. I love those dudes.
I'd
go to a squat show and see 5, crusty bands.
Yeah, yeah.
I loved it all.
Yeah.
And everybody in our band, I think our main thing is we took a look at like what the scene was taking itself so seriously.
Yeah, yeah.
And we said, we're not doing that, man.
Yeah.
Because at the core, our favorite bands were the Dead Kennedys.
Yeah, yeah.
Really, at the end of the day, like
Yeah.
for you to say you guys are like an incarnation of the Freeze,
Right.
that's the biggest compliment. Because yes, we're in this for us.
Yeah.
We write songs. And we still do it.
Yeah.
We're like, if we like the song, we're good.
Yeah, yeah.
If somebody else happens to like
that's
it,
a plus.
score.
Yeah, yeah.
But we're not doing it to make anybody happy.
Yeah, of course.
Except us. We love it.
Yeah.
And, if the whole scene is playing chugga, 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 chugga.
Right.
And I like, at that week, I was listening to Cockney Rejects, and I write like a bouncy 77 street punk song. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
care.
Yeah.
I made us happy.
And I think that's why you guys stick out. I think.
I appreciate it. And, I've heard that's why we never went anywhere, too. Yeah. Like, you guys never found your sound. You never, nobody ever took you under their wing and took you on tour.
Yeah, it's a detriment sometimes with bands, I think. And it's too bad because I think it's an admirable thing to just, this is what we do.
Hearing that now, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Because, we never really had a gauge.
Yeah.
We're like, we were just like, we do the band.
Yeah.
And you have that thing when you're young enough that the band is your life.
Yeah.
And everything else is secondary.
Yeah.
So we're just like, we're doing the band and we're doing tours.
Yeah.
And, we were meeting all these people that were, but the thing was that we started doing interviews and people would interview us and they would ask us to take sides.
Right.
With whatever. And we're like, the first few times people did it, we didn't get pissed. We were like, we looked at each other. We're like, I see what you're doing, and we're not taking a side.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not. I know what you're trying to do here. You're trying to get us to talk shit about,
of course,
this band or this person.
Right.
And you're trying to get us to say we're not doing it.
Right.
So forget it.
Yeah.
And then we started to get pissed about it.
Yeah.
We would say at the beginning of the interview, we're like, if you're going to get us to try to talk shit about X, Y, or Z, the interview's over.
Yeah. People want to, you guys. How come you guys aren't on Revelation Records? Do you not like them? That kind of shit.
Or they would people that would be like, we love Born Against, and we think Gorilla Biscuits are terrible. I'd be like, I love both bands.
Right.
The dudes in both bands are amazing people. They would give you the shirt off their back. They'd give you the Vans off their feet. I'm not taking a side.
Right.
The big one is that, the lefty folks had to stick up their butt for AF.
Right.
And I was like, if you knew AF, Roger's a squatter.
Right. Yeah.
He's more hardcore than you.
He's Cuban. They're not racist.
Exactly. Vinny is the nicest dude in the world.
Yeah.
He'll take you in. He'll give you pasta. He'll give you his Doc Martens.
Yeah.
And he'll be your best friend.
Yeah.
Everybody in those band are the most genuine dudes. So it got our goat when people wanted us to take sides.
Yeah, of course.
So we watched out for that kind of pitfall.
Yeah.
But we never fell in because we always wrote songs that we have like musical kind of multiple personality disorder.
Yeah.
Like I love Blitz.
Yeah.
But I love Nuclear Assault.
Yeah.
And I love Conflict.
Right.
And I love the Specials.
Yeah.
I'm going to put all that shit into one song, or I'm going to put it all on one record.
You can hear it all in there, too, I think.
And we just did that because we were out to please us.
Yeah.
And it's funny, when we first heard Op Ivy, we had never heard Op Ivy, and we were writing songs that had punk and ska and reggae in it. And we're like, somebody else gets it.
Yeah.
They know.
Yeah.
They like the Circle Jerks, plus they like Madness.
Right.
And we did.
Yeah.
Jesse's a huge ska guy.
Okay.
Huge two-tone guy, huge reggae guy.
Yeah.
Just a fanatic, for rude boy stuff. So it was genuine. It wasn't like somebody played us, and we were friends with the Toasters.
Oh, yeah.
We were friends, and like we liked Urban Blight.
Oh,
so we loved this. It was all all underground music.
Yeah.
I don't care what you were doing. It was underground music.
That worked hand in hand. And I think it was the skinhead thing that
it definitely was. And it was also the idea of like, hey guys, we're underground music. We stick together.
Right.
And like I loved seeing a show where it was like a noise band, a dub reggae band, a performance artist, and then it was a punk band.
Yeah.
And we did shows that were like that were like off the beaten path.
Yeah.
And some people gave us shit for it.
Yeah.
They're like, how can you play CDs and you play this illegal artsy fartsy warehouse show? I'm like, because that band with the guy that was playing metal mallets on burning barrels.
It's awesome.
That's the most punk thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, and you guys just want to play music.
They were fun. Yeah. We had a blast. So we never lost sight of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Never, ever lost sight of that. And whether it hurt us or was good.
Yeah.
Because the people we looked up to taught us that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like nobody came to us and said that. We were like, it was just drilled into our head for better or worse.
Yeah, like Black Flag was I remember reading later on, like, Greg Ginn's a Deadhead, and so like, these guys they're not punk guys. I mean, they are, but they're open to all this other stuff. Maybe the influence of some of that stuff ruined.
But you know what though? I'm glad. I'm super stoked you said that, because 17-year-old me was pissed at long hair, 13 minutes solo Ginn.
Right.
But once I got older, I realized that it's more punk to piss off people in your scene and go against that than it is to piss off, like, jocks. Right.
Like,
pissing off jocks is fucking easy.
Yeah, they're not going to hear it.
Yeah, they don't care.
Yeah, they're not going to hear the Skin, Brains, Guts EP.
No, not even close.
Ever.
But if you're in the hardcore scene and you're, like, making people in that scene think...
Yeah.
Then, like, the people we looked up to were those kind of people.
Right, yeah.
And I think... Like I go back to Jesse, the singer, he was always looking for stuff outside of hardcore, just because he was curious.
Yeah.
He loved, like, he loved a lot of the stuff, the later Alternative Tentacles stuff.
Okay, yeah.
He loved Big Black.
Yeah.
He loved Albini stuff.
Yeah.
Loved Rape Man.
Yeah.
And so that influences were there too.
Yeah.
He was one of the first. He's turned me on to, like, Laughing Hyenas.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, we don't have to be verse chorus, mosh part.
Right.
He's like, there's all these other bands. And at first I was like, I'm not listening to that shit. Those dudes sold out.
Yeah.
How the hell could you play Tie Down and then you go do this hippie shit? Right. And then I listened to it and I'm like, this is heavier.
Yeah,
this is heavy.
Yeah.
But it took me having to do that. I wasn't about to get sold that.
Right.
So I give all the credit to, like, Ginn and those people who branched out.
Yeah.
And like had the courage to do that.
Yeah.
Because I remember being so pissed, like, going to a show and having an old timer. It was like, whatever it was, like 86 or something, have some old timer be like, oh, this shit's done. It was done in 83. And I'm like, fuck you, Grandpa.
Right.
He's 2 years older than me, but he's a grandpa.
Right.
And then I look back later and I'm like, well, he was sort of right.
Right.
And then people had to do something
phase.
different.
Yeah.
And, we tried to do what we always did, but kind of get better at it.
Yeah.
But not stay stale.
Yeah. And that's I think that's a needed thing. And I think when you're younger, you don't realize that. Like, you just want your band to, and I think that's a bad thing when people are like that, when their bands change.
Yeah.
Like Metallica.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, these guys suck.
Right.
Because they
Yeah.
wanted to progress to whatever.
And I was always cognizant of that because I walked both fence. I was the dickhead that would be like, government issue, how dare you have an organ in a song?
Right.
Legless bull.
Yeah.
Well, what happened to that? And then
yeah.
I listened to the album You. It changed how I played guitar to the point where I tried to write a song.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to write my idea of how that was going to be.
Yeah.
But it took me being less of a hammerhead.
Yeah. They're sort of like an unheralded, when you think about it, like, they're such a well-respected band, but I think when people talk about hardcore and punk, they don't get mentioned as much as I think they should, because their whole output most of it is amazing, even up to those later things, and just.
But I think it's good that they fly below the radar.
Yeah.
Because if you're a hammerhead or if you're like a lunkhead, which I was, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
And like I had that thing where I was like I was a lunkhead in 86 and 87 when Revolution Summer was going on, and I wrote off a lot of those bands. Oh, Embrace, whatever. Oh, Grey Matter, what a bunch of whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, 3?
Yeah.
Oh, your band name's a number? What a dick.
Yeah.
You don't even mosh.
Yeah.
What an ass I was. Now I'm older and I listen back and I'm like, holy shit. 3 is incredible.
Yeah. They're putting up some.
I'm like, 18-year-old me deserves to be hit in the head. Yeah. So, but later on I learned to not be that guy.
Yeah.
But I also learned to not be the band that was a hardcore band that discovered jazz and was like, fuck hardcore.
Right.
We're jazz now.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you bridge?
Right,
how do you gently and gracefully encompass your evolution?
Right.
You know, it's not like all of a sudden you're like, I had seen bands too that were like, we're not playing that song. We only do this now.
Right.
They got xylophones.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, what happened to your song about burn down the White House?
Right.
We don't do that now.
Yeah.
Now we're this. And you're like, okay.
Right.
Did not want to be that.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be 18-year-old dickhead.
Right. Yeah,
I couldn't be. You know. So it was that thing. But it was such a flattering thing to say that. And it's the other thing is sometimes I'll hear from people that I didn't even know liked my band.
Right.
And they're like, dude, it's such a shame nobody got you guys at the time.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, thank you.
Yeah,
because I didn't think we were trying to do anything consciously. We just did what we wanted to do.
Just did what you did.
But we had an ethic where we're like, we're always going to make fun of ourselves and other shit.
There's definitely an underlying good sense of humor in your music that's there too, and I think
that's what drew me to hardcore. Like when I met hardcore kids, like they weren't lunkheads.
Yeah.
They were smart. They were creative.
Yeah.
They were funny. They were I mean, obviously there were lunkheads.
Right.
But like the kids that I drew me to come, like people like you, funny, laugh at yourself, laugh at other people, good-natured, like just like really like these are people that inspire you to want to be a better person.
Right.
But still not mainstream.
Yeah, of course.
So like we always kept in our mind, we're always going to have fun. The day this isn't fun, we're not doing it. The day we can't do stuff that we don't like. You know, and you know we always did our own art. Like nobody could tell us what to do.
Right.
For better or worse.
Yeah.
You know, we never took like we would take guidance from people we respected. Right. But if somebody came along and was like, and actually that kind of did happen at one point. You and I were kind of talking about how like Nevermind, you know, the Nirvana changed our underground music.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like to people like us who had been listening to like Nirvana wasn't even a blip on it. We're like, oh yeah, Nirvana. I heard those guys. Whatever they're doing.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fine. I heard it. It's no big deal. But like if you had been growing up on Aerosmith and all of a sudden you heard this stuff, you'd be like, what is this?
Yeah, some of my younger friends or one of my best friends, Steve, it sort of changed his, and he always talks about Nirvana sort of changing his life. And I'm like, you know, and I become that old, stupid, jaded, you know, punk rock guy where I'm like, really?
Yeah,
Nirvana?
You're like Nirvana.
You know, but
Bleach wasn't that good.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know, as now someone who just can respect that kind of thing it was important to these certain people.
Yeah.
So.
You can look back and see where it mattered in history and why. But like in 92, 93 at the time for me, I was like, this is crap. I'm like, I know 9 bands that I know all the bands you copied, and I like them better than you.
Right.
Like I love Husker Du better than you. They do what you're trying to do better than you.
Yeah.
But I also understand the effect that they had, where all of a sudden it took the music industry by storm.
Yeah.
And the ripple effect was the music industry suddenly came to our scene.
Yeah.
Right? Before the music industry, you had the biggest middle finger to our scene.
Yeah.
And any bands that ventured into the overground music scene got burned.
Oh, yeah.
Like Husker Du.
Yeah.
Like Black Flag and the Unicorn. Like that always haunted me.
Yeah.
To the point where there started to be buzz that like New York had talent scouts and AR people.
Yeah.
And people were like, "Hey, I heard that a band, somebody's kind of there's a buzz."
Yeah,
that was the word. There's a buzz about you guys. And You got this song, and people think that maybe that could be the song.
Yeah.
And you would hear that, and some bands would be like, "Okay," and they would write a million songs that sucked and forget who they were.
Yeah.
Then other bands would be like, "Well, we wrote that one song, but we're going to continue being who we were."
Yeah.
But there was that time when you would go to a show and you would see somebody that stood out, and you're like, that's some dickhead from a major label here.
Yeah.
And he'd come over and he'd have a brand new pair of Chuck Taylors and a too small Ramon shirt he just bought.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, who's the square?
Right.
Who's the narc?
Yeah, you
could smell him.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd be like, hey, I really like how you guys, you guys really know how to get the moshing going out there. And you're like, he just learned that word, mosh.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys kind of are grunge, huh? And and that whole time period, I was the dick in my band, and I would say to I'd be like, that doesn't, that's a pig. That don't fly straight.
Right.
I was that guy.
Yeah.
Because I didn't trust those motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Sorry to say motherfucker.
Oh, no.
I for my love of Black Flag, I knew the story about how they almost couldn't call themselves Black Flag anymore.
Right. I know, right?
And, like the whole problem with Unicorn Records. And I was like, guys, those are the enemy.
Yeah.
It had been beat into our head by Jello Biafra, of all people,
right.
by Black Flag, by everybody.
Yeah.
The majors are your enemy.
Yeah.
Lawyers are your enemy. You just don't do that shit. And all of a sudden now people are like, we're gonna get a manager.
Right.
We're gonna get a talent rep.
Right.
People are scouting us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you live in a van.
Right, I know.
They're like, yeah, but I want to get out of that. And I'm like, I do too.
Right.
This isn't the way to do it, man.
Yeah.
It's going to blow up.
Right.
And there was like, even within our own band, there was a little, I was the holdout. I was the fundamentalist.
Right.
I was the zealot.
Yeah.
I was like, guys, I don't trust this.
Yeah.
It doesn't smell right.
Yeah.
We'll just hear them out. I'm like,
Right.
even hearing them out.
Right. It's just,
it's a siren song.
Right.
They'll promise you the world. So, that's our second album.
Yeah.
Was kind of written in that time period.
Yeah.
And I know you had said, how was it working with Don Fury?
Yeah.
It's like at that time period, that was a different Don.
Yeah.
Now that he knew us and he
Right.
knew what our first record was like. When we did our second record, like our first record it was super stripped down.
Yeah.
It was like, get in, get out, you're done.
Right.
Our second record, he's like, guys, I want you to go crazy.
Yeah.
I want you to like take these songs wherever you need to go and spend as much time. Yeah. And again, I don't remember if we were paying for it or not. We're like, we hear spend enough time. We're like, oh, we're going to lose our shirts because we're paying for it.
Yeah.
But we did. This was our record where we're like, there was the most overdubs and the most like branching out and is trying a bunch of stuff that was different. And it was the band that like now when people say, oh yeah, I have Shinebox.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh cool. I think everybody ended up getting it. I don't know what they were, what their impressions were of it. But Don, that was a different Don.
Yeah.
That was the Don that was like, let's go crazier.
Yeah.
And he was like really like he and Jesse had a very great relationship where they trusted each other.
Yeah.
And he like pushed Jess more.
Yeah.
Like he pushed me on guitar, but only to like play better.
Right.
He's like, well, you could have been in time a little bit better. Go back and do that. Yeah. He never like suggested a part or overrode a part. Yeah. One time he loaned me a guitar.
Yeah.
He loaned me this like guitar, this blonde Les Paul.
Yeah.
And I was like, to do a guitar part because I broke a string.
Right.
And we didn't have time. And he's like, yeah, use my guitar on this solo.
Yeah.
And it was like a $5,000 guitar. And I'm like, Don, this guitar is worth more than everything I've ever owned. But he never he never pushed us. He never tried to craft.
Right.
He tried to get us to be better at what we were doing.
Right.
Without saying, hey, this could be the next Teen Spirit.
Yeah. I think that's the sign of a good producer. Who will push you, but just push you because he knows what you're capable of.
Oh my God!
He can kind of hear like, no, there's a better one in you than that.
Yeah, and it really like I never understood. Like I would look on a record and be like produced by, and I'm like, oh, that's the guy who turns a knob.
Right.
That's such a discredit because the producer is the guy who's like I say like Don was like the fifth member of our band, and then later on when we worked with a guy called Glenn, Glenn was like the fifth member of our band too, is because the songs we never would have gotten recorded. These people were instrumental into getting this stuff out. They are the unsung heroes. Yeah. So whatever credit that like Albini gets, or that Don Fury gets, or that Glenn gets, Glenn Laredo, whatever they get, they deserve that and more.
Oh yeah.
To make this stuff happen.
Yeah.
Because we're just a bunch of dickheads.
Right.
We are. I mean, like,
younger kids coming in that don't know what they're doing at first, and they just got to be like, okay, patient.
But he's still patient. He's like the best parent.
Yeah.
So that our second record, and again, it was back to Europe, do a tour there.
Nice.
And that was a 2.5 month tour. Again, it was another slog.
Yeah.
But it was again, it was playing with like some squats and some youth centers.
Right.
And then it was a few clubs too, but again, it was still a lot of sleeping on floors, sleeping in the clubs, sleeping in vans.
Yeah.
It wasn't ever as bad as getting the van.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there was times when it was that bad, but not for 6 months.
Yeah.
It was like a week straight of like, wow, we're wearing the same fucking underwear for a week straight, and we have a slice of bread to split between us, and we're stealing toilet paper.
Right.
You know, it was, and you know, so, but the second tour, it was great. Oh, when we did the first tour, the minute we got back, everybody said to us, "You guys got to record right away."
Yeah.
And we're like, well, "Why?" Because there's a big buzz about you in Europe.
Oh, wow.
You got to get something out. You got to get something out. We had some jams, and that was the last thing we did with our first drummer.
Yeah.
We parted ways in Europe.
Oh,
It
really?
was the last thing we did with him. That was tricky.
Yeah.
And we did last thing we did with him when we did this EP with Don.
Okay.
And that was the one where it has a song on it. This 7-inch has a song on it where some people out there were like, you know, maybe this song could kind of be, you know, maybe major labels might be interested in this song because it was kind of a mid-tempo-y kind of song and stuff. And that's where I became the dick that was like, absolutely fucking not.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely not. You know.
Right.
Yeah, everybody. I was like, but looking back now, God forbid you want to be paid to play music. But I'm like, yeah, I agree. But we're doing it on our
terms.
We're still a punk band, guys.
Right. Yeah,
you know, we're not doing it on anybody else's terms.
Yeah.
So you know, so we did that, and we did the '93 tour and in Europe. And again, we never did a lot of the States because we had a set amount of time.
Right.
And like I feel like I have to defend myself because I did have to defend myself on tour because in Europe, people are like I was saying, they're zealots. They're fucking zealots.
Yeah.
Like they'll come to you and they'll be like, "Why do you come to the Europe with only a 7-inch and you have not even toured America and we have better bands than you here?"
Right.
And I'd be like, "Well, you do have better bands than us here. You invited us here.
Right.
So we're here. We're playing. I don't think we should be headlining, but people headlined us.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, the bands that you said that didn't need to get paid, we paid them and we gave them free shirts because we're all punk bands.
Right.
So don't get on your soapbox with us, buddy. We're still punk bands all together. But it would be combative like that. So they'd be like, "Why do you only come to Europe? Are you here only?" And that's the worst accent, but I have to do it.
It's pretty good.
But why do you only come here? And people legitimately had a beef with American because American bands kind of could milk the system.
Yeah, of course.
Just like Scorpions milk the system here, so fuck you, Krauts.
Right,
you know, you gave us some real dog shit too.
That is true.
So back at you.
Yeah. So how long did you guys go? So you went through the mid '90s, late '90s, and
we like the dummies that we are. Yeah, we would 94, 95. We would stop for like a little bit of time because. We realized at a certain point we could no longer make the band the first priority. So we would be like, like this one guy, like, you know, the bass player wanted to move to San Francisco for a little while. Cool, put the band on hiatus. Yeah. So we would stop.
Yeah.
You know, that was a constant problem. No momentum either, or follow through. And like 95, we recorded the last thing that we did with Don. It was the Dead Man Walking LP. And that was another Don, like another phase. That was the record Don said to us right up front. He's like, he had heard the music we were writing for that, and he goes, "Guys, I want to do a different approach with this. I want to do a stripped down, simpler production." Whereas like the production for the middle record was like super lavish and super over the top. He's like, "Here, super stripped down, back to our roots." I'm like, "Well, what are you thinking, Don?" He's like, "I'm thinking Victim in Pain." I'm like, "Let's record." Again, he knew how to play he could play me like a fucking violin. But that was his idea. It was like, these songs are more hardcore punk and less
traditional.
So let's get back to a single guitar track. You know, and we're not even gonna do two rhythm guitar tracks. We're just gonna try to one take shit, try to live take shit.
Nice.
Go. You know, and that was his idea. He's like, "What I want to do for this record." And that was him again having his input and having our record label trusting him. And us trusting him. And so we went and we did that, and then we took we took some time off after that. We played some shows. They actually did a tour in Europe in '95 without me. I couldn't go. I was running a tattoo shop. And the tattoo shop was. There was some trouble with the shop, and I'm like, if I leave for 2 weeks, I'm going to come back to a burnt out husk of my former job. So I'm like, I can't do the tour, guys. And they got a friend of ours who played guitar, awesome guitar player, who they should have kept because he's better than me. He played for me, but that broke my heart to not go on tour with the band.
Right.
But that was making an adult decision.
Yeah.
Guys, I can't tour. I want to tour.
It was like when the Beach Boys did that. Brian Wilson would stay home and he'd write all the music.
Yeah.
And they'd come back. And,
and I missed that tour, and I still kick myself. Like that tattoo shop ended up going into the toilet anyway, so I'm like, oh, I did it for nothing. So then we recorded that, and then we we did a tour again in '96 in Europe.
Yeah.
We did some shows here, but everybody was getting older.
Yeah.
That's the problem, like the adult crash.
Yeah, of course.
I bring that up all the time. And jobs were starting to become careers.
Yeah.
And it's not like I work in a copy shop. Fuck you, I'm going on tour.
Yeah.
And I turned down a job at Marvel Comics of all things to go on tour in Europe.
Right.
And you're offered a dream job, but then you're offered a dream tour in Europe. You're like, wow, which dream do I choose?
Right.
And so I got it. I'm not going to fault you, man. I'm not. And we also made a conscious decision. We had drummers kind of come and go.
Yeah.
We always had good drummers, but the core of the band was Joe, Jesse, myself, and we're like, we're never going to do it without. After that tour they did without me, they took me aside and they're like, dude, we're sorry we toured without you. I'm like, I get it, man. It's for the good. They're like, we're never, from this day forward, we're never doing anything without the three of us. Ever. And I'm like, you don't have to.
Yeah.
But that's cool.
No.
We always had that that thing about us too.
Yeah.
Like when it came time to we had to sign contracts and we had to sign for ASCAP and BMI. I don't know. Did you ever have to do any of that? Yeah. And then there came to the point where it's like, well, you can assign responsibility for the song. It's like, well, I wrote 3/4 of the risk, and I'm like, split it 4 ways.
Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah.
We're done here. No. Are you sure? Because that's going to mean accrued. I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear points. I don't want to hear.
It's not like you're getting checks for $20,000.
We got a check for $1.37 because some guy in Ithaca that had a college radio loved the hell out of one of our songs. So that's cool.
Right.
But so we always said, hey, if it's not the three of us, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
So when somebody had to take time off, we're like, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And we did that tour in '96 in Europe.
Yeah.
And we took some time off.
Yeah.
And by that time, it was no longer just squats and stuff.
Right.
We were big enough.
Yeah.
We could play bigger venues and pack them out and do stuff like that. And we could do what we needed to do.
Yeah.
And, we were big in Europe. Meanwhile, my parents didn't have our record because we didn't have any to sell. But somebody in Europe would sneak into our show and it was worth it. So we took some time off. And then in '98, I moved back to New York.
Yeah.
And we decided, let's get the band back together.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Yeah.
But it was at that point we recorded a demo. We were doing some shows. Yeah. But we also were realistic. We're like, listen, it's shit or get off the pot time.
Yeah.
Are we going to do this for real, or are we just going to shake hands and kind of walk away?
Right.
Because a lot of our friends that we had started out with and our peers were doing it professionally.
Yeah.
And a lot were no longer doing it because they're like, we can't hack it. The Bouncing Souls. Yeah. They were younger than us.
Right.
They used to open for us, and now they're headlining Warped Tour.
Yeah.
We're like, those guys are doing it full time.
Yeah.
It's not easy. They paid their dues.
Yeah, of course.
Sick of it all. Doing it full time.
Yeah.
Are we gonna try to do it full time?
Yeah.
So we recorded this demo and we shopped it around.
Yeah.
I feel like a knob even saying shopped it around. We sent it to some people who we didn't think hated it. Would hate it. And and we got back. We were like, all right, we'll see what everybody says about our demo.
Yeah.
And we all, the universal response was, love you guys. Demo's great. We're just not taking anybody on at the time.
Right.
And I think '98 was like a turn down time anyway, because the grunge thing was dead.
Yeah.
And the time period of buying up pop punk bands was expired.
Yeah.
Everybody had their fill of Offspring and Dookie clones.
Right.
So we missed the mark. We're like, cool.
Right.
We get it. We did some, and the demo we released was different. Like an evolution from our other stuff too. Yeah. It had more growth in it. So '98 was we're like, okay, cool. We shook hands. We're sad. Yeah. I moved away. Everybody kind of went their separate ways, had families and stuff. Yeah. So that was that. People say, why the long break? You guys came back in 2010. Yeah. We came back because I had a hand in bootlegging some of our shit. Yeah. And that generated a buzz in us again. Yeah. A friend of mine in Germany, who was a super fan of Yuppicide. Yeah. was like, hey, the internet made it. There was a file sharing site called SoulSeek.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, man, I just found out that, I just found your Yuppicide demo. And I'm like, yeah, because I put it out there.
Right.
He's like, well, I found your 88 demo.
Right.
And he's like, are you thinking what I'm thinking? I'm like, let's bootleg this shit.
Yeah.
And he's a big vinyl guy. Like, he loves vinyl. So he's like, let's get this out on vinyl. I'm like, I don't think the other guys in the band are going to be cool with this.
Right.
So let's make it look like a true bootleg.
Right.
And to this dude's credit, his name's Daniel.
Yeah.
Him and his people made it look like a true bootleg.
Yeah.
So it was music that a lot of people had never heard.
Yeah.
But it got a buzz, and I had to play along, and hey guys, hey Joe and Jesse,
right.
Check it out. Some freaking weirdos got a hold of our songs and made a bootleg, and you know what? It's pretty good, and now there's a buzz about it. You guys want a couple copies?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so my buddy sent the bootlegs, and I got together with the guys from Yuppicide, who I hadn't seen in a long time. So it was a great reunion.
Yeah.
I saw them at my wedding. They came.
Right.
They came to see me in 2003.
Yeah.
And then I saw him again for this.
Yeah.
And we were looking at the bootleg. We're like, wow, this brings back memories, man. You know, look at the 88 demo. Look at the 98 demo. And then I saw Wheels Turning.
Right.
And they're like, do you think it's time for... I was like, hey, guys, you think it's time for an anthology?
Yeah.
Just because if we're going to... People want our stuff.
Yeah.
Let's do it ourselves so at least we put out quality.
Right.
Instead of these freaking hacks in Germany doing it.
Yeah.
Who was me and my friend. We're like, let's do it right.
Yeah.
And that got the ball rolling.
Yeah,
and we did the anthology.
Right.
And obviously the anthology, people were like, we want to see you again.
Right.
But there was nobody in America. It was people in Europe. So, we played the old stuff. And then people, of course, were like, is there anything new?
Right, yeah.
And I was like, guys, as a matter of fact, there is. So we ended up doing, some new stuff.
Yeah.
But the long break was just because of adulthood.
Yeah. Just,
and I mean, the guys played in other bands in a time period. I played in other bands.
Yeah.
But I missed those guys.
Yeah.
And I missed that band. That whole thing.
Yeah.
It's just you know how it is.
Yeah, of course.
You just miss your buddies and you miss playing.
Yeah.
And it's just that fact.
Yeah. And creating this music. And this is always, at the end of the day, that's the thing you want to do. Be with those dudes.
It's just everybody in the band's creative.
Yeah.
And just yet another outlet is music. Everybody draws. Everybody paints.
Yeah.
Joe's an incredible carpenter.
Yeah.
Everybody does this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And like music is just yet. It's like, wow, this is cool. We're doing this together.
Yeah.
I get to be in a band with two of my best friends in the world who I worship.
Yeah.
Like I put Joe and Jesse on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Like they are incredible human beings, great artists. So when they would like tell me you wrote a good song or you drew a cool graphic,
right.
I would be like trying hard not to blush because I'm like, the guys I look up to were telling me I did good.
Right.
So that was incredible.
Yeah,
so to be in a band with people that you look up to and admire, it was just like, wow, it's a blessing.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
And so as for now, the band is pretty much...
We're on like in sleep mode. Because I have the baby, and Jesse's got his kids, and everybody's busy. But I mean, at any given point when it could start back up again.
Yeah. So it's not like it's like Fugazi.
It's not dead. Yeah, exactly.
Although I think Fugazi's dead. I don't. Who knows?
Yeah. But I like the fact that Ian said we're not. He didn't officially say it.
Yeah.
So I mean, we when the time is right, we might do it again because it's as long as it's fun.
Yeah.
If somebody said, "Hey, how would you guys like to open for GBH?" I think we would do it tomorrow, sooner rather than later, or or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
But for now, it's kind of working out that we. But I'll be honest with you, being apart and not doing it for those bunch of years.
Yeah.
I made a conscious decision, and I think the other guys did too. I was like, when we do it again, I'm going to savor every fucking moment, even the shitty times.
Yeah.
Even when I'm having to re-overdub something for the 53rd time in the studio, I'm still going to relish it.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Having to push the van out of a ditch on tour,
right?
I'm like, I'm so lucky I'm even on tour. This is fun.
Yeah.
So that value of being more mature about it was like a blessing.
Yeah, no, that's good.
I'm lucky.
Yeah.
And having people still be interested in the band
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well,
It just doesn't make any sense to me because I look up to like Greg Ginn.
Yeah.
I look up to Vinny Stigma.
Yeah.
I look up to people like that, like to Hank Rollins and Ian.
Yeah.
And people are like, you guys are matter as much to me as I'm like, shh.
Yeah, you're being humble, but I think just in this conversation, what you're talking is proof of that. Like, definitely, yeah.
And the nice thing is that everybody that I look up to has always said that.
Yeah.
They're like, I look up to Tony Iommi. They're like, don't worship me.
Yeah.
When people ask you for your autograph, I'm like, don't get my autograph. Get Geezer Butler's autograph.
Yeah, I remember at one point I told years ago I saw Nate Newton at a show and told him I was going to get some Converge lyric tattooed on me, and he's like, please don't do that. And I never did.
Yeah.
But he's like, don't do that, please. I'm like, yeah.
It's when the first time we went to Europe on tour.
Yeah.
The guys called me over. They're like, yo, check it out. And they're pointing to a kid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's a punk kid, so what? They're like, dude, show him.
Yeah.
Pulls down his sleeve. He's got a Yuppicide tattoo.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck did you do that to yourself for? Meanwhile, I have a Black Flag tattoo.
Right.
I have a DI tattoo.
Yeah,
I'm like, those are the bands you get tattooed on you.
Yeah.
You get the bars.
Yeah. You have a DI tattoo?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I'm like, you get the bars on you, You get that. You get the Battalion of Saints symbol.
Right.
You don't get my fucking stupid band tattooed on you. So, yeah, like that that doesn't even make sense that people would do that.
Yeah, well.
It doesn't even make sense to me because it's like we do it as a goof. It's fun.
Right. Well,
So for people to do that, it's bananas, and
Yeah.
it just shows that whenever I'm like, oh, life fucking sucks, I'm like, some kid likes my band.
Yeah. So nowadays, do you have creative outlets at this point in your life?
Well, with the baby, it's limited. Like I barely get time to like pick up the guitar.
Yeah.
Once Yuppicide kind of wrapped up, I had a bunch of songs that I had written that I didn't know what I was going to do with.
Yeah.
I was hot to record a demo.
Yeah.
And the date that I was going to go in the studio was the day my son was born.
Oh, okay.
So those songs are kind of like waiting there, and it's not like when people hear it, they're like, what the hell, Karp? You sold out, Dude,
Right.
you wrote REM's first record. It's like jangly pop.
Yeah.
It's punk rock.
Different. Yeah.
It's just me doing, people. It's just I got to work with some other friends of mine that I've been waiting to work with.
Yeah.
But I think I can't draw as much. I can't paint as much because he's such a little guy and he needs my time.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, like my work, I work in engineering and I'm a drafter.
Yeah.
I get to be creative there.
Yeah.
I get to be a punk rocker there.
Right.
Because I get to say no to shit
Right.
that goes against like what I do. And it's weird because people were like, you used to be a tattooist. That's a punk rock approved profession. Being a bike messenger, punk rock approved profession. Working in an engineering firm? Not. You're working for the man.
Yeah.
You sold out. And I'm like, not really.
Right.
Because I get to push super environmental projects.
Right.
And I get to have a say on stuff. So I'm still get to be somewhat of a punk rock. Do I have Liberty Spikes now?
Right.
No. But I still get to do that. So I try to find places for it to creep out.
Yeah, of course.
Definitely.
Yes.
I'm lucky in that regard. I read books on punk. I try to reach out to friends who are into punk rock and make little inside jokes with them.
Yeah.
We giggle about it.
Yeah. No, I feel like being like an old guy in punk rock now and meeting like all these like you and these people I haven't known. We all sort of have the same story and and it's great. It's great to like reminisce about stuff and
it's like meeting a pen pal.
Yeah. So.
Or like going, like I was thinking about it, because my wife was like, oh, how do you know a Christian and this and that? I'm like, we're kind of pen pals, but it's like back to the idea, like when you were into punk rock and you had a pair of Vans on and a Circle Jerk shirt, you'd go somewhere with your family and you'd see some kid and he's got a Battalion of Saints shirt on,
give them
and he'd be like, my best friend is right over there right now, because you're like, that dude gets it.
Yeah.
Not just he likes the music, but you're like, that dude gets picked on at his school.
Right, yeah.
His parents think he's weird for wearing eyeliner.
Right.
His parents think the fact that, you know, he's got a song called Richard Hung Himself.
Right.
He's going to kill him. That dude knows.
Yeah,
and it's unspoken.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and you get all your each other's jokes, and it's just...
Yeah.
It's good, especially in his life that can be really polarizing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's good to meet people who get it, but then they're different, and they're like, hey, but I also really like Country Joe and the Fish, and you're like,
okay,
I better check them out, because a dude I respect likes them.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna check them out.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, this dude did a band I never heard of, and you listen to him, and you're like, this band is awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not anything to do with hardcore or punk.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I checked out your band.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, I never heard of this band.
Right.
And I'm like, listen to it, and I'm like, this dude's got a great voice. And I'm like, but it's like, but from being in the studio, like I knew how hard it was to do that stuff. And you and I had talked. You're like, oh, I never thought about my voice.
Right.
I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like I get it more. Like I appreciate people's like bands that I didn't care for now. Like I make it a point to be like, hey man, I went outside when your band was on. That was dickish because you guys rule.
Right, right.
And I appreciate what you did, and it made me a better musician.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't know who you are, but I got it off my chest.
Right.
That I was like making amends for being that dick that I didn't have to be.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's something I have to do.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess to end this, we're over 2 hours. Which is pretty awesome. It's something I'm going to start on these, at least when I'm talking to hardcore people, is to ask them if they're what side they stand on with the Faith Void record.
Oh, yeah. Jesus, I'm glad I didn't have time to prepare, because now I got to stall. And I guess saying both, I can't choose, right?
Yeah,
I got to choose one or the other.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to have to say the Faith.
Yeah.
And it's not because Void isn't good.
Right.
It's because I can't play anything Void does. I can't even approach anything. Like, I can't even think
it's that
mindset.
Yeah.
Like, nothing prepares you for Void. Like, Faith, you're like, I get this.
Right,
this is an outgrowth of other stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I can play it.
Yeah.
And, like, selfishly, too, like, I really love that live photo. Of the Faith playing at that little ass club.
Yeah.
And because I'm like, I've played little ass clubs with brick walls and through a shitty practice amp.
Yeah.
Like I can relate to that.
Yeah.
But like the trip that Void is on is so mind changing.
Yeah.
I can't wrap my brain around it, and I don't want to, because I want to appreciate that. If I ever get to the point where I can write a song like My War, I'll commit myself right then and there, because I'll be a danger to society.
Yeah.
So I got to say the Faith side.
Yeah. Cool.
Definitely.
Perfect. All right, man. Well, thank you very much for doing this,
dude,
man.
This has been such an honor.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
I'm glad you didn't make me, explain, AF versus Life's Blood or something, No. Who are your influences? The Zine interview.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been a blast. I'm super stoked I got to meet you and hang out.
Awesome. Definitely. Thanks, man.
All right, cool.